I reckon start from the beginning.
It's always a good one.
Jeff Perret's entire life has been shaped by motocross, and it all started back in the 80s.
I started racing in 1981.
When an unplanned visit to a small Yamaha dealership turned into the start of a lifelong obsession.
We walked in, it was only a little shop. At the back on the left, there was like a little YZ50. So I just naturally made like a beeline for that.
What started as curiosity quickly turned into a lifestyle.
I learned to ride in the back garden between the bird bath and the washing line. Dad's health had started to deteriorate. He just, in the middle of the night, just had a massive cardiac arrest, heart attack. And then that's when it really did, sort of, everything changed. Kind of like Dad ushered us all into the shop. Mum did a similar thing one morning. Say it right now, this is what she said. Wherever this takes us, we don't know, but there's an opportunity to go and do something together as a family and enjoy the experience, and there's an opportunity for you to like get out there, see the world through riding the bikes. And I know you're sort of struggling now, but your dad would want you to sort of go on.
I reckon start from the beginning. When you started racing.
It's always a good one.
What year did you start racing?
Okay, yeah, well, I've been in this game too long and I really stopped and thinking about it. I started racing, I think it was late February, March 1981. This is where you look up and say you weren't even born.
I was -10, I think.
Jesus. Okay, yeah. So 1981, classic. You know how you kind of fall into the sport. So the old man always had a bit of an interest in bikes. He never raced, but you know the whole kind of grew up in the 40s or 50s, the whole bad boy bike image thing. You know, all that kind of stuff. So he always had the whole kind of rock and roll thing of like a bit of a biker, or a wannabe biker. So he had an interest in bikes. And then it was my brother, Sean, who's my eldest brother. I've got two brothers. He's the eldest. His mate at school, a rider from quite a good standard rider at the time, national level rider called Graham Bill. He went to school with him. So he came back from school one day and basically kind of, the old man was really like hard but fair, you know, just that classic as they were that generation. It's like you knew where you stood type thing.
No bullshit.
No bullshit, exactly that. So he came back and said, look, he's selling his bike. Graham's selling his bike. Would you, like Sean, I think was 16, 17, something like that, just getting towards last year of school. And he said, look, Dad, could you loan me some money? I want to go and, like, I want to buy a dirt bike. And he's like, oof. So, you know. So tell you what, we're going to see. So he went and looked at it. They came back from that, and Dad just basically said, nah, not buying that. You're not buying a dirt bike. So it's like, so Sean was like, okay, well, I'll do it my way. I'll save up, you know, and get it done. And then I think it was roughly about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, we were all sort of summoned down to the kitchen table on a Saturday morning. He's like, right, nobody go out today. We're going out today. Okay, right. Didn't really say why. And we all sort of bundled into the car. And we drove over to the local, at the time it was the local Yamaha dealer, which was a place called Roger Barrett's in Christchurch in Dorset. And we kind of pulled up outside. Nobody really clocked it. And then we got out, like, we're sort of, you know, following him, you know, like you do. I don't really know where we're going. And then just kind of detoured into the shop and was like, and then like I kind of remember, not really well, but well enough, remembering the look on Sean's face. Because that's like the penny drops, like, wow. And then we walked in. It was only a little shop, you know, almost like one of those classic barber shops, like sort of bay window either side with just a door in the middle. And we walked in, and then at the back on the left, opposite the counter, was like a little YZ50. So I just naturally made like a beeline for that. And I got on it, and sort of Mum was, you know, talking to me while Dad went and spoke about the bike with Sean, and my other brother was talking with them. I kept, you know, like sitting on it, making all, you know, like you do, jumping up and down, making all the noises, like twisting the throttle, doing that whole thing.
Flooding it.
Yeah. And then I think Dad paid for the bike, and then he kind of turned around. I was still sat on the bike. He goes, "What, do you want one?" So I was like, yeah. And then sort of Mum stepped in. It's like, no.
It's good, expensive.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think it was an expense. I think she was more worried about, you know, she didn't realise that you could start that young, I suppose.
Yeah.
But anyway, I sort of just like, yeah. They went off and had a discussion for what felt like ages, but it probably wasn't. And then he literally went back to the counter. He goes, right, we'll take the 50 as well.
Mega.
But then he was in a position then where, like, my other brother was there as well. So he had to ask him. He was like, well, I can't ask
3.
Yeah, so I can't ask 2 of them and not the other one.
That's an expensive day out.
But my middle brother, his real name's Graham, but his nickname was is Percy. Everybody knows him as Percy. And he wasn't interested. He was like, nah.
Just didn't do it for long. Had a go, but
no, he didn't even have a go.
Oh,
He's
really?
like, no, not really his thing. And yet, ironically, here all these years, still he is probably still the most fanatical out of all 3 of us.
Still riding.
He doesn't ride, but he
just loves the sport.
Watch it. He goes like whenever I was injured, which was very rarely, he'd go off to a meeting and watch it on his own, that kind of thing. So anyway, he offered him. I should imagine the old man was probably like, oh, that's a relief. So he didn't want a bike. So we basically came out of there with 2 bikes, and that is literally how it started.
What was a Pee-wee 50 then cost?
Oh God, it was probably. I seem to recollect it was somewhere like in the 500 quid region. So it wasn't even like a PW. It was like a geared 50. So I straight away started on a geared bike.
That's good though, isn't it?
And Dad had a successful building company at the time, and he was actually renovating our house as well. So he was just fitting the kitchen at the time we bought the bikes. And I remember I learned to ride in the back garden between the bird bath and the washing line. So I made a track on the lawn between those 2. It just started off as an oval, and then I started like just grabbing like plastic containers like weed killer and stuff like that, and designing a different track all the time. In the end, I had to stop though, because the old dear was like getting really pissed off because I was ripping up the lawn. Dad didn't care. But I remember he was fitting the kitchen, and he'd cut the worktop, for the sink. So I said, I'll have that bit of wood. And that was the first time, that was my first jump I'd ever done. So I got the wood that cut out from the sink. So it's real short, and it's not even that long. And found an old milk crate, the glory days when we had milk delivered.
Yeah.
And I got a picture of it somewhere of me like taking off, but clearly not cleaning the bike out. There's just like this plume of smoke coming out of the back where it's all gassed and oiled up. And I learned to ride in the garden. Yeah,
it's cool, isn't it?
And that's
it's
how
good you remember all that.
Yeah, well, I distinctly remember it because it was such a buzz.
Such a good
then
time.
My cousin came round, and he was sort of had a go and wanted to maybe convince his dad to do it, but he had a bit of a whiskey, and he literally went through our shed. He went flat out into the front of the shed, stoved it all in through the rose bush, and then and his dad was like having to my old man was called Ray. He's like, I might have to give you some money for a new shed. Like, that's all right, it's all right, don't worry about it. So that was his career, short lived.
So what age was that?
I just turned 8. So yeah. So that was at the end of. I think that was just before Christmas, if I remember rightly. Oh no, maybe it wasn't. No, it's just after Christmas. Yeah, it was beginning of 81.
Yeah.
And then in no time at all, because Bealey, Sean's mate, raced. We obviously joined a club, because back then there wasn't like you've got here, like a facility. There weren't many places to go and just ride.
No.
To go and ride your bike, you had to race effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was odd bits of wasteland, obviously more than what you get now that you can ride at. But so we joined the Ringwood Schoolboy Scramble Club, which was one of the biggest at the time. They had some really big names come through that. Watley, I think Noisy raced for them as well at the time. Anyway, they were a big club.
Yeah.
So we joined them, and my first race was.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, it was at a track called Oakford Fitzpaine. Still got a picture from it somewhere. Wallied around at the back, dead last. There's a brilliant picture. That's when photographers it's kind of made a resurgence in it. But back then there was like a resident photographer.
Yeah.
That would take pictures. Everybody's got a phone now, so you don't need it so much. And we got a picture from my first race. Yeah. So my dad smoked a lot, roll-ups. So he's there with a cigarette in his gob. And then the old dear as well.
Putting fuel in.
Mum was like so nervous. And she was like, she smoked a little bit in her 20s and when she was younger, then she stopped. But then when we started racing, she was back on it.
Chain
oh
smoking.
my God, yeah. So she's there with like a big king size, I think, hanging out of her mouth. And so it's a brilliant family shot because it's both my parents in it, me sort of turning the corner really slowly. And then I think it's even got like the Ringwood Schoolboy Club lap scoring van in the background.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was my first race. So that would have been February or March 81. Sean went into the what effectively is the 125 youth class, you know, and we did a year racing together. But then then it wasn't like you had adults and kids racing at the same club. It was youth only or adult clubs. There was nobody ran
like
together. So at the end of that year, Sean had to go into adults, and he went off traveling with Graham, with Bealey and his parents.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't split.
Because you couldn't both be at the same place. Yeah.
So that's how that happened. And then...
did you carry on straight away from that then?
Yeah, I was petrified and really nervy about it, but the overwhelming feel of riding the bike.
Yeah.
That just outweighed, you know, it was like, well, I'm not sure about this, like having other riders around me bit.
Yeah, because you've been bombing around the garden.
It means I get to go and ride my bike on a bigger space than the garden.
Yeah.
But soon, not long after starting, we started to go. So Matcham's was our local track, but back in those days, it wasn't. It was like just heathland, and you literally just rocked up, started riding, get your bike off the trailer, out the van, started riding, and then there was two twins that worked for Reg Slack who owned the track, identical twins, which was quite confusing for me at times. I was like, hold on, why has he changed?
Who's he?
But they used to just then come round after you started bombing about and collect your money. And it wasn't till I think the end of, I know somebody would correct me if they're watching it that knows, I think it was the end of 83 or 84, around then, that they actually then laid down a permanent practice track.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple of like head-on smashes.
Yeah. Once a few accidents happened.
But back then it was just literally like you can make your own track. So I literally learnt to ride properly at Matcham. So it was, I think that had a big part of like my, eventual success, because I learnt to ride on arguably one of the toughest tracks or places you could ride. And I was so short that you literally sort of learnt to just ride with my feet up, because taking my feet off wasn't doing anything anyway.
No.
I was so short, they weren't touching the ground. So anyway, yeah, so that's where we started riding and did a load of riding over there. And then I know the exact date, but on the 27th of September, 1981, at a track just round the corner from Rogers Hill in Dorchester, Rogers Hill Raceway at Bear Regis. That's when I won my first race. So it only took me, what was
Not
that,
long
6
at all,
months
is it?
to start winning. Yeah, I sort of went from, in half a year, I went from literally coming in last to winning races.
And that was the start of, that one made you want to do it more, keep going?
Yeah, I mean, once you...
As soon as you've got that one.
Just riding the dirt, riding your dirt bike, that's still what it is to me. That's why I love like the sport.
Yeah.
Some people are just the competitive edge. It's like not really the riding the bike. It's the winning.
Yeah, they have to race.
Whereas for me, it's just been like the expression of riding the bike. And if you're good at it and you win as well, then great. But it's actually how riding a bike makes me feel.
Yeah.
So I never got caught up in. Maybe that's probably why, as we get further on in my career, I reached a good level, but maybe could have gone more. But maybe it's just because I never had that.
You just enjoyed riding more than the competitive side. Yeah,
I never sort of looked at myself in the mirror and said, "Oh, I'm going to be a world champion" or anything like that. I'm not saying I could have been, because I obviously probably didn't have the natural talent to do that.
But you don't know because you weren't in that situation.
But I've also been I'm a realist. I always have been. I kind of know, quite methodical and think about things probably too much. So
did you do a British Championship, and what year would that have started? Or was that later on?
No, I started, in 81. I won my first club championship
Yeah.
in '83. That's with another club from down there, Hanson Dorset, which was an up and coming club. We had two.
They still going?
No, but they did for a long time, but they were with a different federation. They weren't with the BSMA. They were with the YMSA. So again, before we came on air, we were talking about all the different federations.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
We'll go into that. We can cut what we're not allowed to say.
So that's when I won my first sort of club championship, and then I started doing nationals in around, I think it was the end of '84, and then in '85 started doing more. But then you didn't have so much a national championship then. The ACU had they did, I think, still have the ACU final, but it wasn't a championship. So they basically had you know,
best of.
Yeah, which I personally believe would be a good way to do it now. But again, we get onto that. But so you kind of accumulated enough points for your club, then you went, and there was two semi-finals, and then they basically took the top 20 from each, and then the final. So that was the first sort of year doing nationals. I can't remember what I got in that, but I didn't do so much ACU stuff. But what they did have, which was really cool, is all the major clubs back in the day had 2-day nationals. So they'd all run a national.
Yeah.
Which was the official, open to people outside of the club and all that kind of stuff. So, you'd have Corsham Club, Morden, Vale of White Horse, and the list goes on of all these really good, strong youth clubs that run a national.
It's good.
And then, so that the following year when I really sort of knuckled down, because I wasn't really sure.
What was this, 125?
No, still on an 85. But I distinctly remember coming home from school one day. I think I was 11, just into, I must have been 11. And I just thought, right, that's when it was I was thinking, right, I've sort of won a club championship now. Or no, I finished 5th the year before, that was it. So it was before I won the club. I thought, I want to win that. So I can remember literally coming home from school and going, right, I'm going to start getting better. And that's when I literally decided I was going to start physically training at 11. We didn't have the sports science that they have now and all the coaches, none of that. There was none of that.
No end, doesn't it?
So, I just came home and thought, right, I'm going to start. And I'm going to start tomorrow. So I started running, which I'm not designed for at all. And where I live, which is right on the south coast, a little village called Milford-on-Sea, we've got a big shingle beach that goes out into the Solent with a big ancient castle on the end.
Nice place to learn.
It's awesome. So I started to run down to a castle that's called Hurst Castle every day, which was, I don't know, probably about a 3-mile run, but on shingle, heavy shingle. So it's pretty hard work.
Yeah. Talking of running, Reese has just done a marathon, haven't you?
I did, on Sunday.
Did you?
It was brutal.
20, what is it?
26.2.
You see, you're insane. I don't
know how they do it.
I've got a little sub-story to long-distance running. I hate running.
I hate running.
I hate it, and that's probably because I made myself do it when I was a kid to get...
Puts you off it.
Yeah, I think subconsciously I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
As I got older, I'm like, I did all that when I didn't like it. But one year, it was 99, I didn't do much running even when I was racing GPs. I did more sort of cycling and mountain biking and stuff like that. I just didn't want to pound my knees and ankles too much. But one summer in 99, I know I'm going a bit off piste here, I woke up, it was such a sunny, beautiful day, but the temperature was real good. And I was actually off injured for a bit. I can't remember what the injury was. Clearly wasn't anything to do with my ankles or anything. I thought, I'm going to go for a run. Just sporadically like that. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to run. And I did the classic, Forrest Gump. Started running. And I just kept running. I just kept running. I had my, headphones on, iPod, whatever it was. And I was feeling really good. And I was just loving it. I ran all along the coast and I just kept running and running. And then I got to virtually Bournemouth, which is nearly 18 miles away from where we live. And I must have got, 15, 16 miles. And I thought,
just without even realising,
I've got to go home. Didn't have a phone, didn't have any money. I'm like, oh my God. So I thought, right, no, I'm fit enough. I'm an athlete. I race Grand Prix. This would be a doddle. So I turned around and ran back, and it wasn't too bad. And
Because you knew you had to get home,
and
probably.
I think in the end, I kind of worked out that I probably did about 22, 23 miles, maybe even more. I just thought, what's this marathon running? What's this? It's not too bad. It's literally like 3 days later. Oh my God!
I've been hearing these stories.
It was
Could not walk.
horrendous.
You still have your toenails.
It was just horrendous. I literally went to get out of bed like 2 or 3 days later, and I couldn't. I was just like rigor mortis had set in.
Is that what you had?
I had that. I've only just managed to start walking. I did it on Sunday. I couldn't get out of bed on Monday.
It's horrendous, isn't it?
It's
I literally.
I had to pull myself up the stairs with my hands. Yeah.
Exactly that. I had to go down the
See,
stairs.
I don't get it. You're not selling it to me.
No, don't do it.
No.
Well, if you're going to do it, you've got
And it
to
isn't
build
that
up
good
to
for you, is it? Like your knees, ankles.
No, it's the jury's out on how good it is for you. A lot of people like mess their knees up,
Yeah.
but then to some degree, like your bone density in your legs gets a lot better. So I don't know.
So it is
I think
better.
I've worn mine down the stumps.
That's what I mean. I think it depends on like.
That must
who
have been
you
that
are.
one run.
Is that one run? Exactly that. Honestly, I literally shuffled down the stairs like on my ass.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah,
And you could have played like literally like any kind of classical music. You could have played on my hamstrings and my tendons after it. They were that tight. So anyway, that's my running story. I'm not into running. Don't ever ask me to run.
No.
Call it a day
Unless
after that.
unless I'm literally being chased by some madman or something's on
Then I'll
fire.
have to run.
That's the only time you'll see me.
You're
run.
going to do another one, though, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm already signed up for one in April.
You're a lunatic.
Yeah. I think you should have waited.
But I
till you'd
signed
done
up.
this one
I
before.
signed up for the one in April before I did this one on Sunday.
Right.
So I ain't really got a choice in the matter now. But at the end of it on Sunday, I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So I just put it out there. If anybody wants me to do a charity run or anything to raise funds, I'll just give you the cash. All right. I'm not just.
I'll pay you not to do it.
Yeah. Exactly that. Yeah. Sorry, I took us off piece.
No,
there.
that's all right. Back where was we then? Back to racing.
Yeah.
So you're still on an 85 at this point.
Yeah, so-
when did you move up?
So before, I think my last 2 years on 85. So 86 was probably my best year in youth motocross. That's when I switched to KTM. When KTM were in their infancy of making youth bikes, they brought out an 85, which
Was that their first year then?
I'm not sure. It could have been certainly when they brought out a good model. It could have been 83. They brought it out. I'm not sure. 84. I jumped on it at the end of 85 because I was supported by Yamaha at that point directly through the importer at the time. It was called Mitsui Yamaha. So I was supported by them. But we'd had a few issues on something, and then Brian Goss had then become he was the KTM importer. So he was in Yeovil, which was, kind of only about an hour and a bit from where I live. So I guess he'd seen me ride quite a lot because I did a lot of regional races down there. So he then offered us a ride on the 85, which I jumped on at the end of the year. And I was riding Yamaha at the time. So we went and did, I think it was the South Somerset National, could have been. And I'd switched in the week or between the last time I raced to a KTM. And I went out, and that KTM was fast, man. It was good. But it was a good bike as well. So I went and won the national for literally my first sort of ride on the
year,
KTM, which was his local event as well. I mean, his shop was almost like within a stone's throw distance of where the race was. So of course he was there, or he came up on the Sunday, and then I remember he sort of went to he shook my hand to thank me. And then as he was doing it, he was kind of like rustling my hand. What's he doing? And then he kind of stuffed something in my hand. And then as I sort of pulled away with my hand, and he'd give me 200 quid, which as wherever I was, 13-year-old, 12-year-old kid.
It's a lot of money.
I was like, this rocks. I like KTM. if that's how that's going to work.
That's a selling point.
So yeah, I went running over to Dad. Said, yeah. He said, well, I'll take that. 'cause
That's more prize money you get now.
Yeah, it is. And that was. So off the back of that, we kind of agreed to ride KTM for the following year, and that's when I had my best year. I won, I think, 11 nationals that year, but I had a bit of bad luck in the big two, which was the Champions of Champions and the All British. The All British, I was in the shout of winning it. I think I just had to finish in the top 15, 16, something like that. But I think the stator plate or electrics or something went on in the last race. And
Yeah.
I just sort of spluttered around and I just couldn't quite get enough points. And I think Justin Morris won that one. And then in the All British, I think I had a crash in one race or something that cost me that. I'm not saying I would have won that, but I was definitely on for the All British, if I remember rightly. Justin might remember it differently, but that's... and then, Champions, I finished third. But I won so many other nationals. But that year, towards the end of the year, Dad's health had started to deteriorate a bit because he was also an industrial fisherman before he was a builder. He was a builder, then a fisherman, then went back to being a builder. And he had an big cast iron engine hood when he was working on the engine, sort of fall and hit his head. So he had a massive brain hemorrhage like years prior to us starting motocross, and it just started to catch up with him a little bit. So he had a few complications. He was in hospital, won nationals. I remember that, and I remember I really wanted to win it, which I think was the Morden National. It was. At a place called Sutton Veney, which is an amazing track in a valley. So I really wanted to win that. So I won that one. I remember then going in hospital next day and taking him a trophy. So that was pretty cool. So we had a really good year that year. But then I had to move up the following year. And I was still like vertically challenged. Well, I'm not exactly tall now, but moving on to the 125 was kind of like difficult because I was so short. So we got onto the KTM 125, but the whole kind of thing, we had to try and lower it. This is before you could, get aftermarket bits or whatever. We had the seat, just like Carmichael, everything really lowered, and I had that when I moved up to an 85, and that was another reason maybe why I got really good at riding my feet up, because we got a picture somewhere. When I went off the 50 onto the 80, just momentarily we went to Dad bought an RM80 so I could ride the 80 while still riding the 50. But because it was so big, he literally cut all the foam. I mean, there was another reason why to stand up, because it was literally like like a bit of fabric over the bottom of the seat, and I could feel all the frame coming through it. But they also came up with the idea, which is like, I must dig this picture out, of like turning me into like a 70s glam rock star. I think it was Mum's idea to go to a cobbler's, which was, you don't really hear them anymore. Literally took my boots to a shoemaking guy, and they put like platforms on it.
No way.
Yeah, they put like 1.5 inches.
I bet that was horrible. Could you not feel a thing?
but they literally did it like big like Elton John platform shoes. They didn't do it all the way across, so they just did it on the front and on the heel. So I had this big recess, right? And I started to find, like, when I put my foot on the bit, it was almost like a mountain bike. I was locked in. I couldn't move my foot. I couldn't move my feet like forwards and backwards. So when I'd come into a corner, I'd have to sort of slide my foot off to the side and then
put it back on your toe.
And that was another reason. I think it really helped me, because I just thought, sod this. I just got to learn to ride with my feet up. Yeah.
It's good though.
So I don't know if that's a training technique that modern coaches will look into, but
what if Carmichael did this?
I don't think he did. So on the 125 it was a bit difficult, and it just took me a little while to adapt. And then, if I remember rightly, like Badger Goss was like, they obviously wanted the 125 to run at the front, so he was kind of sort of suggested that, they got another rider in, and I think Dad was a little with me as well, but I think like Dad felt it wanted me getting like the kind of maybe level of support that he should have done after a really good year before. So he went, nah, don't worry about, because he asked if I could ride the 85, because I think I could have done that in the 125 class, but they wanted me to be on the 125.
Was there an age restriction for it then?
Yeah, there was, but I think you could still
jump up and down.
Well, you could still go in. To this day, I think you can still ride an 85 in the 125 class if you want.
Yeah.
It's not a minimal CC capacity, it's only a maximum.
Yeah.
So, but I think, if I remember rightly, that kind of all sort of stopped or kind of pitted out. And then I think we went back to, I think I was getting a Yamaha at the point. My brother had then gone to a Kajiva 125, which was fast, really fast. But then, so it was a bit of an indifferent season, really. I did a few sort of nationals, but because I was so short, I was just like trying to get used to, obviously racing against kids that are older than me. And like they were they were young men, and I'm like this little kid. And then everything kind of really derailed at the end of '87. That's when, so Dad then died. He just in the middle of the night just had a massive cardiac arrest, heart attack. And then that's when it really did sort of, everything changed, not dramatically, but dramatically enough.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of like, it was off season, so it was December. And then, we were just getting round to like, what are we going to do now starting next year? And that's when I was really like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
even
a
sure.
big part.
I'm not even sure if I'm like, even when we went out riding, we went back to Yamaha, bought a couple of Yamahas, or Mum did, and I just started riding again a bit in the off season. I was like, it's just not the same. It's not the same.
No.
I'm so used to like Dad doing the bikes, being the side of the track. I'm like, it's all.
You've gone from you doing more yourself.
Yeah. So Sean carried on riding. I kind of jumped in and out. Mum was incredibly cool because by this point, from the very first time in the shop, going, oh no, I don't want him riding bikes. Within 6 months of us starting racing, she was on the committee for the club. The following year, she became chief lap scorer, and then she was then became club secretary. So it totally engrossed her more than anybody.
And mechanic.
Yeah, because no, she wasn't a mechanic. No, but up until that point, we were brought up in a lovely area. Literally right on the beach. Our current house is like 500 yards from the water edge. It's just a lovely place to live. So our summers before we started racing was like going down the beach, water skiing, family picnics.
Proper outdoor.
Awesome. You know. So that's another reason why she's like, I'm not sure we want to get into this, because she loved her lifestyle, but it completely took over her life.
Yeah.
And it was then when, I remember again, like kind of like Dad ushered us all into the shop. Mum did a similar thing one morning. She made like a family breakfast. We had my brother and my sister, and everybody was round. And she kind of like, and it wasn't her style really, but she kind of like, she sat everybody down. She's like, right, look, this is what we do. And I know you're sort of struggling now, but your dad would want you to sort of go on.
Yeah, crack on.
And it's like, we're not just doing it like for you because you've got potential. It's like, this is us. This is what we do. This is now my social life too. So she guilt tripped me a little bit.
She obviously enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, look, we want to carry on. Your dad would want you to carry on. And it's like, so I'll say it right now. This is what she said. She's like, wherever this takes us, we don't know, but there's an opportunity to go and do something together.
Yeah.
As a family and do it the best we can and enjoy the experience and see there's an opportunity for you to like get out there, see the world through riding the bikes.
Yeah. Something you enjoy.
She literally worded it something like that. And okay. And then obviously I slept on that for a little while. And again, just like when I started training when I was a kid, I kind of just woke up one morning going, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Why not?
Absolutely. Of course. Why, like I've got to accept that things have changed and they're not, but we can't go back to those.
No.
So onwards we go.
Yeah.
And from there on, I can honestly say, sort of hand on heart, that's how I've sort of lived my entire, literally my entire life. I've got no game plan. I've fallen into stuff because I care about it.
And you want to do it.
I mean, because exactly that.
And other doors have opened from different opportunities. And
yeah, I got, like I said, no game plan, but I love what I do and I'm passionate about it. And I love the sport and I love the people probably more than the sport. That's the other thing that keeps me involved. I've got, if you did it in a percentage of sort of friends and acquaintances in my life, I'd probably say, 25, 30%, family, people from home, school. But the majority is like, it's
From motocross.
from motocross, yeah.
All the people you've met over the years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just from different countries.
And
Yeah,
as you
it's
get
mad.
older, you appreciate it even more, I just had a message ping up this week, actually. James Marsh, obviously, former GP racer, 500 GP racer. He used to race Portsmouth Club, which was quite close to where we were as well. And his sister, Sarah, has just set up a group for a big kind of reunion to try and organise a reunion next year of like all us that used to race.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because everyone just gets families, grow apart, stop racing. You don't see them again, do you?
no. And so that's how that came about. And that was it, really. Once I got my head around that, I knuckled down again, started training. Sean quit his career because he quit his career a little bit earlier, actually, because obviously when he had to go off and race adults, and mum and dad took me youth racing, and I was obviously at a level where I was winning nationals and stuff.
Yeah.
He eventually sort of called it a day, but he did race some British Championship rounds back in the day, the era of like Thorpe, Watley and all them. I think he qualified at a few and scored a few points, but stuff like that. But he was always a good mechanic as well, because Dad taught him. Because my dad was an exceptionally good mechanic, because he was a builder and and a fisherman. So he
hands-on.
fabrication,
Yeah.
making stuff for the bike, all that, amazing. And he kind of taught Sean. I showed an interest for a little while there when I turned 11. I thought, right, also if I'm going to be a good rider, I got to know about the bike. But he vetoed that. I went in the workshop a couple of times, and he went,
Get out.
He goes, look, I appreciate what you want to do, but I'll tell you this: if you're going to ever make the grade, it's good to know the mechanics of how a bike works and whatever. But you're better off concentrating on being the best you can as a rider and keep yourself fit. Because if you're going to make the grade, you have to put your trust in somebody else doing your bikes anyway.
You do find that, though, the fastest riders probably don't know much about a bike or maintenance of a bike, do they?
Listen, I can. I'm putting myself on the spot. I could probably. It'd take me a while, but I could probably build and rebuild a 2-stroke. I can definitely change a piston, although it's been ages since I even attempted that or did that. Air filters, no bother. Obviously it's just an air filter, but I don't mind power washing a bike off. But all the other stuff, and a 4-stroke, just forget it. The minute my brother first took the head off of that, and there was just like spaghetti junction in there, like chains going. I'm like, oh,
Pull that back.
no. So, but regards of feedback, I've always been quite good at that. So and obviously, when I fell into magazine work and becoming a test rider, the more you do it, the more you kind of understand, to give feedback and whatever. So, regards of riding a bike and telling what's going on with it, I'd like to think I still got a good eye for that. But actually having to solve the problem, I just like, well, it's doing this.
You know what it's doing, but you wouldn't be able to fix it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's most fast pro riders, isn't it? If you said to any
I
a
think
GP rider, change a tyre or something, or
there's
tighten
some
your chain.
exceptional ones though.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, Mark Eastwood is exceptional, but then he obviously works in the shop, what was his dad's shop, family shop.
Yeah.
Mark now runs it now. And obviously Scott, his brother as well. So those two, just because I've got experience with traveling with them, riding with them, working with them, they really know their stuff. Like Eastie knows what's going on. He can, with suspension and actually, working on tuning a bike. So there's a few, I think, but the more modern generation coming through,
Definitely.
probably not, because that the sport's evolved.
Is it a good thing not knowing as well? Because you know what can go wrong, or
Probably, because if you're riding around and you're hearing noises and you're not sure what they are, you're probably going to go, well, I'll keep going till it breaks. But if you're clued up, you'll probably go,
pull off.
Oh, that's going to do that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think the next generation, like we said, that the sport's evolving, which it is, and more kids are now like, the homeschooling thing, and they're kind of like what Dad told me, but to the next level. Like, you concentrate on being the best athlete you can.
Yeah.
And, we're put the rest of the package around. You go and do your thing. So.
Yeah. So when did you start going Europe?
So I turned, so my last year racing youth motocross was 1990. Again, with Yamaha, a little stint with Kajiva. No, that was 1990 actually. No, that was 89. Then back to Yamaha in 1990. Roger Harvey had started working back with Yamaha and offered us a deal. So I did my last year in youth motocross for Mitsui Yamaha. Had a pretty good year. And then went into adults the following year. And then that's when Rog kind of put us in touch with a new Yamaha dealership, Paul Yamaha, Andy Sutton, which was like Dorset's Yamaha dealer. Kind of eventually they obviously took over from Roger Barrett's. And so with a little bit of support from Yamaha through the shop, kind of went into adults, racing down the Southwest Series, which was really strong. There was some really good strong centres back then. Everybody was pro level was riding ACU, and there was all different centres to go and race your regional races at, and then you go and do the British Championship. So I first started doing British Championship, I think, at the end of 91, maybe beginning of 92.
So did you have to qualify then?
Yeah, a bit more. I think you could still enter. Yeah, you could, but you still had to score. You had to score enough points.
No one could just go and enter and you're in the British.
You had to score expert points.
Yeah.
Which you did obviously by riding regionally. But
Yeah.
I got them pretty quick. First of all, you start as a junior, no matter how good you are, and then you got to get your points to get to an expert.
Yeah.
And then you got to get enough expert points to go and do the British Championship. I think that's how it worked. You certainly had to get your your expert points before you could even go into
Some
the
sort of
expert class.
entry level then.
Yeah, and I just sort of started making my way up, really, doing the British Championship, and then started edging higher and higher each year. But then to go and race Grand Prix back in the day, because it wasn't an EMX Championship as such, there were, but I think it was like a one-off event. I can't really remember. We didn't have EMX as we have it now,
No.
put it that way. You had the three main classes, obviously 500, 250 and 125. Well, we kind of jumped straight over the 125 in adults because, like, just resources.
Yeah.
Like we didn't, want on a major team or anything like that, and then just didn't want to. We didn't have the kind of resources. If the old man was still alive, maybe, but he wasn't. So we thought if we go to a 250, it's just a bit easier to run. You don't have to
less
tune it so
maintenance.
much, kind of thing. And of course, wasn't quite ready for a 500. Although I probably would have been relatively good 500 rider because I'm kind of like.
Not aggressive.
No, I'm really conscious of grip and throttle control. Always have been. Again, probably because I was so used to having to keep
Having
my feet
your feet
up
up, yeah.
and not keep dabbing. So we went to 250, and that was really cool. And I just started building up. But then to do GPs back in the day, you had to be on the grading list before you could even go, and that was the same for each country. So I think for the 250 class, if I got it right, I think it had to be in the top 8
Of the British.
in the British Championship. Yeah, or not necessarily in the top 8, because back then we had the Open Championship, which was 500 and 250 combined. Then we had, I can't remember how many rounds of that, and then we had the 250 and 125 British Championship, which was 2 different classes,
Yeah.
but on the same day. So yeah, I just started working up, and then eventually got good enough to where I was inside that bracket in the British Championship to apply for a license and go and do GPs.
That's cool.
And with obviously Mum's rousing Churchill dinner table speech ringing in my ears, I was like, wow.
Did you get support straight away to do the GPs, or did you
No,
have
we
to do it
was
off your own
privateer,
back?
and looking back, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
No, glad you did it.
Yeah, because I never got on a major team. I guess just maybe because I wasn't showing enough to a major team, but also back then I think there was also still a little bit of politics and a little bit like face fits, and because I was a bit more of a I wouldn't say toe the line. I mean, I don't think I was like a renegade or whatever, but I was into my rock music, hence the t-shirt and everything like that. And I had long hair, believe it or not. Me and Eastie had long hair, Warren Edwards, a few of us. And I just think maybe we got pigeonholed a little bit. You know, it's like, because I wasn't outspoken. I wasn't doing anything like I wasn't going around getting hammered and smoking or anything. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I wouldn't even know how to. I'm not much of a drinker. I'm getting better as a drinker. Much better as I get older. I'm getting really, really quite good now. But not then. I was rubbish.
Seasoned pro.
I was rubbish. You know, I literally have a cup and I'd be all over the place. So I don't really know why that didn't happen. But in hindsight, I'm glad it didn't, because for those 5 or 6 years we did GPs, we held true to exactly what we spoke about.
Yeah.
Or Mum spoke about. We literally collectively did it as a family, and we did it our way.
Yeah, you kept it.
Which was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, my middle brother, Percy, was a bricklayer at that point, or still is. He'd work extra hours to put fuel in the tank. Sean was like a plasterer. I had a part-time job as a window fitter, but I had a really understanding boss who used to actually babysit me. So he'd let me have time off as and when I needed it. You know, and as long as I gave him enough warning that I was traveling Europe and I'll be back hopefully on this day and I can squeeze in some work here, and he was cool.
That's good.
And that's how we funded it.
You need that when you're doing it, don't you?
But, you know, we didn't have the pressure of justifying results or the effort.
Do you think if you had the team support, you would have lost what you had originally set out with?
I would achieve probably better results because I had better equipment and I'd probably put the work in more. Would I have enjoyed it as much? Probably not.
No.
That's not my character.
You just want them to ride and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I could have dealt with the pressure pretty well, because obviously I'm kind of used to a pressured environment a bit now with the work that I do. But regards to the fun that we had, and let's be honest, you only get one shot, or at least that's what we're sort of led to believe. And I just had a riot. Like we road tripped. I mean, it was me and Eastwood. We travelled with Eastwood all the time. He was the first sort of proper GP rider I'd ever met, and we just, our family and the Eastwood family just hit it off straight away. We first met Mark on the boat out to first ever, international really, which was at Dole track in France, in Normandy, I think, or Dole de Bretagne or something like that. This motocross track right in the middle of a village, literally on their village green.
You wouldn't get away with that now, would you?
It literally closed the roads off, and it was nuts. And we met them on the boat, and it's like, oh, he's got, and then, oh, that's Eastie over there. He's got long hair, and then we started, literally, the connection was rock music, and it incidentally was Pearl Jam and Nirvana. We started talking about that, and we realised we had a lot in common, sunk a few on the boat, and that was it. And then we just, from there on, we travelled together, to all the GPs as much as we could. The ones that I didn't do them all, because Eastie was doing the whole series. I didn't do all the flyaways and stuff like that. But there are videotapes, DVDs. Because my best mate, Chip, he's literally my schoolmate. He really bonded with them as well, and he used to come along when he could. He was like the team chef, because he's quite handy in the kitchen. And he'd sort of documented the whole thing. This is way before YouTube and whatever. But honestly,
what's in this chef's menu?
Honestly, if anybody saw them now, it would, certain brands and people I work for, it probably wouldn't bode well. The shorted edited version would be all right, but man, we had.
I reckon we need to find these,
because it was.
Need to go in the comments.
Everything wasn't so serious then. Even the top riders, because they didn't all fly into the races like they do now.
It's not like it's now.
I got some video somewhere, one of my last GPs in Tel Aviv in 2000. Another good mate of mine, Jimmy Redman. This is when we all decided that we'd go and buy a load of C90s when we were back at home, and we used to just obviously tear around the streets and on C90s and go, just off-road on them and just, brilliant. And we came up with a few alter egos. He was Turbo Man. He got this like leotard and this big cape and these stupid crash helmet and goggles. And Ryan Hughes was testing the day after the GP at Tel Aviv. This is when he's with Palmo Honda. And they were doing a proper test. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we just get into it? They won't know it's us. Just get into our alter ego and just go and rock up on the start line next to him. Just pull up from nowhere. And obviously that's what we did. And fair play to Ryan. He kind of embraced it and had a laugh with us or whatever. So we got some footage somewhere like Ryan's doing starts and we just kind of roll in on the C90s next to him. We're like, right, are you up for this? And then we had a midnight ramble race at Talavera the night before the GP, which was obviously in front would just go mental if you did that now. We took them all out literally all on track on the Saturday night before the GP. I was riding the next day, and yeah, obviously the lights were like piss poor and dim on, and we had all the top boxes, and we did like a 2-lap sprint race around Talavera, and like all the top boxes are falling off, and there's bits of bike falling off, and car, because it's like dark.
They were cool, the C90s, weren't they?
Yeah,
you don't see many now. Can you still get hold of them or not?
I've still got mine.
Have you?
Yeah, still in. I kind of tidied it up a little bit. Still in
Put the
good
fairings
shape.
back on.
Yeah, still in original trim though. Still all right. Got a few scars from them, but yeah.
Oh man.
There's just endless, stories like that, and it was the same with the 500 lads. Like Marshy and Brian Whelan, the whole thing. 125 lots. Swanson, Shelton. All the British lads. You earned the right to be there. Yes, you laid it all out on the track.
Yeah.
But you also had fun with it. And I just think, and that's not character. I think that's in everybody. That it's just a different world now.
Yeah, you're all there to do the same thing, aren't you?
Yeah.
You've all got the same interest.
It's all got a bit too serious for what it is because it's a short window.
Yeah.
And that's the bit I can't quite get my head around. It's like, obviously all the things I'm doing with like Blue Crew and running my own team and stuff, you want the kids to be the best riders they can.
Yeah.
And live that dream.
And enjoy it.
And enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm when I talk to the parents like of any riders that I help or work with, I'm like, I don't want to sound like an old, like a guy that sits in his chair, with the end coming soon. But like honestly, this ride is really short.
Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy it, your motocross career, your kids' motocross career is going to be over like that.
Yeah, 100%.
And do you know what? Like, don't come away with it like having regrets. I always say it's better to regret something you did than something you didn't do.
Yeah.
So like, and when you hear people like Jeff Stanton, who was obviously like an icon, one of the most successful riders in American history, Kurt Nichol the same.
Yeah.
Look up, say, well, I achieved this, did that, but I'm not sure. I didn't really encapsulate the moment. I was all a bit
too serious.
That's them saying that. That's not me putting words in their mouth. They've both openly said, could have had a bit more fun with it and maybe still achieve the same results. But I was just so focused.
And you find like kids coming up now, they get to a certain age because they've done it for so long and been so serious. It's they end up just stopping, don't they? Because they've had enough. They're bored of it. They don't enjoy it.
I won't, but I could name probably a dozen riders from my generation that were like awesome, prolific.
Could have done
as
so
youth
well.
riders. Got to adults, be it injury or
Sick of
opportunities.
this.
2-3 years max, and they have literally disappeared, like they've disappeared off the face of the earth.
It's mad, isn't it? I used to see it in karting all the time, like because they've done it from like such a young age at 8 years old and then all the way up. But they get to 17, 18, want to go out drinking and just had enough, haven't they?
Yeah, and that's a big deal, isn't it? Like I think,
want the
if you're being pushed as a kid in your early teens, the inner drive obviously has to come from yourself. But if you're being pushed a little bit, then I question that anyway, because you've got to want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. You might see a talent, but you've got to let the kid express herself. But it's so true. Like we're only human. We grow up, then we obviously we turn into adults, and that when you're there and you're going through puberty and all those things, you got all of a sudden like you could be going racing on a weekend. It's cool.
Yeah.
Then you have a bad weekend when you're a teenager, 14, 15, 16. You're on leaving school, college. Oh, that was crap. Dad wasn't happy, mum wasn't happy. I was getting shouted at, shit result.
Not spoke to you all the way home.
All that. Come home. Obviously now they're communicating all the time, aren't they? But and then your mate's going, oh, we went to a house party this weekend.
Yeah,
it was wild.
Yeah, because they've missed out on it
that,
all
and they're
whole
going,
life, haven't they?
Oh, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden, like girls, opposite sex, you suddenly got a driving license, you got your freedom. You're like, there's more to life than riding a bike.
Yeah.
So for me, I've seen so many kids like, I wouldn't say, well, yeah, let's say pushed. You know, again, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but you're like, just keep them on the bubble, keep them enjoying it and whatever. But actually, until that kid gets through that stage of his life, just
Chill
you know,
out. Yeah. Because you don't know what they're going to want to do.
because they could, yeah.
You could have just
And you've
wasted your whole life.
Exactly. And
savings.
as much as you love it and you're doing it as a family,
Yeah.
you can still do it without that level of pressure and that level of
Yeah, it's true.
investment. You know, seeing kids or parents doing what they're doing. Some can afford it, some can't. The ones that can't, they go out, they push the boundaries, maybe remortgage, they do all
Yeah.
this. And you're like, oh, hold on a minute. Save that for when you might actually need it.
Yeah.
'Cause if
Especially auto days. And
Because if the kid's good enough, like the industry, no.
yeah, you're going to get spotted, aren't you?
Yeah.
Everyone knows if you're good or not.
Yeah, Tommy's a good example. Tommy didn't set the world alight, you know, as in, of course he did. He was a good youth rider, but you could tell from an instant, you know, they didn't, you know, Quentin, by Tommy's admission, you know, like he didn't really know what he was doing the bike or whatever. You know, it's like they needed that, but Tommy had that. He had that inner.
Yeah, wanted to do it.
Yeah,
Wanted to do well.
he had the inner drive to do it.
How do you
He
think
wasn't
you keep
pushed.
that?
Well, I think if you're pushed too early,
Yeah.
you know, you can
lose
just
the
like,
love.
yeah, you can just.
No matter
course
the
not.
result, you sort of got to just keep it fun, haven't you?
You
From a
got
young
to
age.
keep it fun. You got to have some downtime.
Yeah.
Like the classic saying is like, obviously, once you start missing something, you want it more, don't you?
Yeah, it's true.
So if you're doing it all the time, like off seasons, I see kids like, and they've got bounds of energy, but the parents doesn't, and they're working, they're trying, and eventually that pressure's going to build.
Yeah.
So take an off season, take a couple of months off. You're not the kid's not going to lose. He might lose a little bit of bike fitness, but he's a
Yeah,
kid.
it
They've
comes
got endless
back, doesn't it?
energy.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to be right. Make him want to start the next season and want to ride.
Yeah. Make him excited for it.
Yeah. Because if he's just riding all the time and taking time off school all the time.
Yeah, he's
You
not
know.
seeing his friends. He's missing
But this
out.
this is where I question it again a bit. And we're all trying to make the sport better in the UK, in particular, which we spoke about. But it's got to be realistic with the prize at the end of the rope.
Yep.
And this is where we're at, I think, out of sync. We all look to Grand Prix motocross and then particularly AMA, but there's more investment, more money floating around in AMA motocross, particularly the amateur programs for the kids.
Yeah. Look at
So
Loretta's.
that's when I get it. I'm like, because they could then go and sign like a huge financial deal at 14 or whatever that will set them up to go into. We don't have that in Europe currently. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
People are having to invest. They have to pay for rides on teams.
Yeah.
Not they pay you,
It's crazy, isn't it?
and yet you're again. I don't want to like piss on your fireworks because you want your kid to be the best they can be, but you've got to have a dose of realism with it
Yeah.
as well. Like you're spending all this money, and like the reality is you're still gonna have to get through that period of the kid's life, and then you're probably still gonna have to invest another £500,000 just to get them on a top team, and then hope that they perform for a couple of years to the point where they finally get to a level where the team goes, all right, he's our guy.
Yeah.
You know, it's got like Formula One. We all know people,
Yeah.
drivers pay for seats,
Yeah, 100%.
and
If your face don't fit as well, you're not. Yeah.
you
There's a
know,
lot
so
into it, isn't there?
I'd never try and put anybody off like trying to be the best that they could be.
Yeah.
You know, because that's, as humans, that's what we should aspire to do. Like find a passion and do anything to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
But
But like what we were saying earlier, wasn't it? Before this, I wasn't going to get into this early, but
Sorry.
no sound. There's no guidance for them to which way to go, is there? From a kid, where do you go? Like in America, you've got your stepping stones through Loretta's, get your deal, go pro. There's nothing like that here, is there?
certainly not currently in the UK. You could argue a bit more in Europe, but again, I just think the structure. You got to be pragmatic and I guess see both sides of it. You know, in front, Youthstream as they were in front. they get torn down a lot, and you can justify that because they changed how it used to work. So then, like, they stripped away the prize money. So straight away, when I raced Grand Prix, for example, you had to earn the right to beat there. So it wasn't just a case of if you had, your dad could be a multi-millionaire,
but you still have
to get on the grading list.
Yeah,
you can't just pay your money and go.
Which is right, isn't it?
Which is right.
Yeah.
You could then go and do it as a calculated gamble. By that, or risk, you could go, right, I've earned the right to go there. But if I go and qualify, that's money in my pocket just to qualify.
Yeah.
Then prize money went down when I raced to 25th.
That's good, isn't it?
So I think it was before the Euro.
But that's like AMA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then they get paid to just line up.
Yeah, so, if I had a good weekend, and for me, a good weekend racing 250 GPs, when I caught it at the time when the 250 was becoming the premier class over the 500. So it was tough, but I enjoyed the challenge. I was out there with Everts, Tortelli, Volan, Bera, Beverts, and it goes on, So for me, to qualify was a big thing, just to get into the race, because that's effectively the 40 quickest riders. And then in 98, I think they took it down to 30. I think it was 98 or 99. So I was like, okay. But it was a good calculated risk. So for a good weekend for me, we'd be qualified, and then my best results. Points went down to 15th then, not 20th. I never scored a world championship point. I had a handful of 16ths. I've never got a British
Frustrated.
Yeah, but it is what it is. I have to again be realistic about it. I'm a privateer racing against factory bikes, factory equipment, full-time athletes, and I was fitting windows.
Still good to be there.
So but I would go and I'd come away with a couple of grand.
Yeah, it's good.
And then they had midweek internationals between the GPs because we had less GPs. We only had like 12.
Yeah,
That's why.
Season, aren't they?
That's also why our British Championship was more prosperous at the time, because now top riders got to make a bit of a decision. They either just 21, 22 GPs now.
Yeah,
and then to try and fit in like a domestic championship as well. It's a lot of riding. So
and have a job.
Yeah. So it was good to go and do that. But now, like you said about the structure, it's hard to, I don't know, like, so in front, they've done what they've done, and I get it, why they would do it for a business model. If you can suddenly go, well, I'm going to run a championship, but I'm not going to have to outlay that amount of money.
Yeah, of course they're going to do it, yeah.
They rightly or wrongly, they've done it.
Yeah.
And the industry has gone with it. So now, like, I don't know how they get that back, because from their standpoint, they run, regards of the infrastructure, it's massive. We've all been to MXGPs.
Yeah.
It's gone up to that commercial level with all the skybox and all that to try and raise the profile of our sport, get it more mainstream. Like others, I get that. But with our sport, as a purist, which is what I am, I like to think I am, it's getting that balance right, and we're not Formula One.
No.
We're an accessible sport to the masses. And I think the event should reflect that. The fact that you can go to an event and get so close to your heroes, stuff like that.
And you never want to lose that either, do you?
Yeah. And the tracks that we even go to. So it's that balancing act. We're obviously going to more places with the infrastructure because you have to have it.
Yeah.
But then to do that,
we've
lost some brilliant race circuits.
Yeah.
So
it's hard, isn't it?
And that's where,
in
my opinion,
business, it's not just it's not just a championship, is it? Like a club's just a club, innit? They're just doing it off their love of it, aren't they? They're not doing it to make money.
See, it's a real balance in that. And in my personal opinion, I still obviously watch World Motocross because it's been my life, and I'm in awe of the riders. Federer's one of my all-time favourite riders. So I just love watching him ride. Hurlin's obviously the way he rides and all.
Yeah.
Still, guys, the list goes on. You still watch them go, gee. Once you've ridden a bike at any level,
how
you've got
are you doing
nothing but like I know factory equipment or not. You're like Jesus.
Yeah.
So I just love watching them. But in my opinion, that's when you go to AMA. That obviously, You got, Lawrence's and stuff. You could say it's kind of now, for a little while there, European motocross was ruling the roost when it comes to the nations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But regards of the sport in general, and like making our sport look what it is, an incredibly exciting, accessible sport that with world-class athletes, and I can't stress that enough, they're right up there
100%.
with the best athletes in the world. I personally feel that, that's where the AMA just get it sort of that little bit better. Or, I get, like I say, why In Front did what they did, because they're looking at it as a business model, regards of.
Yeah. But the AMA also like promote the rider, don't they? They make the rider their own brand sort of thing.
But the other advantage they've got, and that's why they do it so well, they market stuff really good.
Yeah.
But there's no two ways about it. American motocross has reached where it has, if you want to say the pinnacle, when they introduced Supercross in, I think it was 72, year I was born. That's when it elevated motocross. Because if you actually stop to think about it, like we had all our world championship stars going over and doing the Trans-Am series, and motocross was in its infancy over there. Obviously, they had loads of land.
Yeah.
Amazing. Until then, people were buying dirt bikes and just riding on wasteland, loads of it.
There wasn't tracks.
As such. But American motocross really took off when they introduced Supercross.
Yeah.
Because basically what happened then is you get a load of people who didn't know anything about the sport in city centres, would come out, watch it, go
on a bike.
This is unbelievable. Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
Well, you don't start in Supercross.
No.
You then go, right, I'm going to find my local Honda or whoever, go and buy a dirt bike, and you start riding.
Yeah.
And they've marketed the two hand in hand since then. So good.
Mm.
And that's why, it is so good, because one supports the other.
Yeah. And especially with the new SMX.
Yeah.
Like what you said earlier, creating the third championship.
Exactly that.
The best of the best. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be unlikely to happen, but even wishful thinking, I'd like to think, maybe there are conversations happening. I don't know. But wouldn't it be absolutely awesome if World Supercross sat down with In Front and went, well, why don't we do a world or a European equivalent?
Yeah.
Let's reduce the number of GPs and do exactly like they do in AMA.
Yeah.
Let's have 6 rounds of World Supercross at the first part of the season to the likes of Federer, guys, that all them. They can go and do that. Month break. Now we're going taking it back to outdoors.
I think they'd want to do it as well.
I think the problem you've got there is the Americans would do World Supercross and absolutely rinse them in.
Yeah, well, there is that.
Yeah.
Then they wouldn't do.
But then they wouldn't.
They wouldn't be
at
in the
that point.
GP.
Do you go and do the MXGP? So you're sort of.
But it would also help In Front, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
They'd bring riders back.
Listen, I'm just throwing that idea out there, because clearly, I think
the WSX thing is really good, especially for British, for British riders that's never been out to America or fans, they'll never get to see them riders, do they? So for another series to travel the world, it's good, isn't it?
I think so, and I think I'd like to think that they're
more known.
I don't know. I'm not privy. I'm not in that inner circle to that level of conversations that are being had. But World Supercross are a shaky start. I think by their own admission, there's been a few changes there and stuff like that. It seems like they're starting to get it back on track.
Yeah.
I think appointing Kurt Nicola part of it with all his experience, because you got to remember Kurt also was a big part of Nitro Circus tour, so he understands that commercial side of it. It's not just a former obviously head of KTM there for a while, Nitro Circus. So it's not just Kurt Nichol, the former 500 250 GP racer.
He's been involved.
He knows the commercial side, and simple fact that they'd be foolish, I guess, to obviously try and fit it around, clash with AMA Supercross. So the fact that they're doing it at the time they're doing it in that window from when the GP's finished to when A1, they're fitting it in there. So that so that's kind of got legs to doing it,
and to get the Americans over doing it's huge, isn't it?
There's loads of them doing it this year. I'm sure there's 5 5 or 6 factory guys.
And your big names.
They're
Yeah.
like, even if they're just doing wild card,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people doing it.
I guess it's the balancing act from the rider, and I'm talking GP riders now, MXGP riders, and and MX2, of them doing World Supercross contracts. I suppose that that you got to remember when you get to that level, like a football
Injuries.
player, you're an acquisition, aren't you, to a brand? They pay you the money to go and do a job.
Yeah.
So they don't when Federer broke his leg, he was loving it. By his own admission, he was enjoying doing Supercross.
Yeah. But it's another risk to their season.
And if he hadn't broke his leg, he probably would have kept doing it.
yeah.
But Kawasaki probably, well, no, we signed you up to do that, so don't go and do that. It's like Johnny Ray or any of the road bike racers. Then, well, you can go and ride a dirt bike, but
you can't.
But you shouldn't. Go careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would, I'd love to see. That would just be great if it happened. I'd love to see the likes of the GP riders also do it racing indoors, but probably like pie in the sky. Whereas obviously every rider, when you go and do the AMA, a rider of note, unless you can get to as good as McGrath was, or vice versa, where you can go, I'm having a Supercross only contract. I'm not bothering, or Roxon,
Yeah.
But when you initial part of your career, you're never at that status where you can go to a manufacturer.
No, you can't pick and choose, can you?
No, you're doing both when you get to America, unless
Yeah.
you get that good that you can, that much status and clout where you can go, well, I'm only going to do outdoors now.
Yeah.
So
And the people like towards their end of their career, like the older boys now, they wouldn't probably do if it was WSX and MXGP together, they probably picked not to do the Supercross, wouldn't they?
I think
It's your younger ones coming up.
exactly that. That's the point I'm trying to make and didn't quite get it across. Yeah, like to evolve
The sport.
the sport a bit more in Europe, maybe.
Yeah.
Rest of the world. I think
worked out there,
Supercross is a
hasn't it?
massive part of it because
Yeah.
ultimately you can package it better.
Yeah.
For Joe Public that don't know what it's about, they come in there, they're in the warm. It's a 3-hour show or whatever you want to call it, a bit like Arena Cross in the UK. It's packaged well. You're new to it, and if you've never seen it before, even like the freestyle, which I've hosted every Arena Cross show, and although I don't do the Arena Cross bit, the FMX bit, it still amazes me what they do. But I've seen it
That many times.
that many times.
Yeah.
But if you've never come to an event before and you're seeing that, and then that happens, and then there's 4 blokes going through the air upside down, and then 10 minutes later there's 12 blokes taking lumps out of each other.
Yeah.
You're like, this is
It's
amazing.
huge, yeah.
And then I know that theory of what I've said actually works because Jordan Kinsella, a little kid from Ireland, I think from Dublin, somewhere near there, from Southern Ireland, he came to Belfast to watch as a kid, and he was this little kid. I think he was about 10, 11, so I don't know exact age. We'd finished the show. Everybody's sort of, dispersing. We're playing the walkout music, Me and Matt Crowhurst, or it could have been Christian Stevenson at the time, another good show, buzzing with it, because you can't help but get engrossed in it as hosts. We're walking back, putting our mic, and this little kid comes running down to the front row. He's like, that was amazing. So I went over and spoke to him, and it was Jordan, this little kid, never met him before. He's like, that was amazing. I was like, you enjoyed that? He said, yeah. I said, you've seen it before? No, it's the first time I've come. It was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to do that. That's cool. Yeah, go and speak to your mum and dad and get a bike. 2 years later, he was on the start line.
That's mad, isn't it?
And he'd never seen bikes before.
That's a cool story, yeah.
And now he races, and he still races.
But he wouldn't have known anything about the sport if it wasn't in a city in an arena,
Yeah.
would he?
So I'd love to see, going forward, like more synergy with that. Particularly, even in the UK, I know it's not easy running events at the minute.
No.
Arena Cross, post COVID, post Brexit, it's just we all watch the news. Well, maybe we don't. Probably best if we don't.
Yeah, I don't.
But things
We
are
all
getting
know what's going on.
harder and harder, isn't it?
Yeah, the cost of everything's so much higher, isn't it?
But I think, and you could argue, which I see comments on social media, well, why would anybody race Arena Cross in UK? You get smashed up, ruins your outdoor season. Yeah, but then we all know the risk with that. But then look at the exposure you get. There could be a potential new sponsor in the crowd from a brand or a corporate brand, a high street brand that goes, this is cool. He's cool.
Yeah. I want to get involved.
And to be honest, the money at Arena Cross has been, over the last few years, have been pretty bloody good. I wish it was around a bit more when I was racing. I would have done it. So, yeah, regards to structure for riders, though, and, I know Tim Lightfoot, the new ACU chairman, credit to him. He's doing a good job.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of work to do because they've been a sleeping giant for too long.
Yep.
But he is making moves in the right direction. And I know that because I've been fortunate enough to have conversations with him,
Yeah.
And I've also, at the British Championship round, Paul Irwin and, and Neil and, promoting the series now, they introduced that academy for the 125 and under 21 riders. It's only a small thing for this first year where we sit them down in the marquee on a Saturday night. Myself and Justin Morris, then we bring in guest riders and just kind of give them some pointers on, the whole pitfalls of the sport and everything like that. So they really want to they want to try and get an ACU academy back to the level it used to be. Mark Hucklebridge used to run it. I think Justin used to be involved with it some time ago as well. So we need that 100%.
Does, definitely.
Because
it needs some sort of stepping stone, doesn't it?
If you look at the French Federation, they got on a run, didn't they? I can't remember the exact years, but did they win like 6 nations on the spin or something like that? Now that's not luck.
No.
That's because 10 years prior to that, they invested in like bringing riders like Fevre, just all those riders that have come through Vial and all that, have all had like a system of support to help them through European racing.
Yeah, 100%.
And onto that. And I think it's become even more of an issue for us now. We're out of the European Union, carnets, for example, getting your bike over, all these things you didn't have to worry about before.
Yeah, it's harder for them to go abroad and train now.
So I know Tim Lightfoot and everybody at ACU are really now looking at that as to say, right, we need to get it back on track. He's very proud of the fact that the ACU is one of the founding members of the FIM.
Yeah.
We've got a rich history in the sport. I mean, if you're really going to be that detailed about it, we bloody invented the sport.
Yeah.
Camberley Heath, whenever it was, back in, 19, whenever it was. But, we need to just put some structure in place for the young talent we've got. Because I go to enough youth races, we've got some really good young talented riders come through. And they are equally as good regards of technique and talent as some of the riders that I see when I see the riders from France, Sweden, America.
Yeah.
They are.
Well, look, when we do the...
They actually are as good.
Yeah.
They just need the platform and opportunity to excel to get as good as those other kids.
Yeah. They need a system in place to get them where they want to go, innit?
Yeah.
And support.
Yeah.
Funding.
I mean, if you strip it right back, even fundamental things like facilities in the UK and weather.
Yeah.
We're not blessed with that. I mean,
unfortunately,
I'm not blowing smoke, but the effort that you're putting into this venue here, if we had more people doing what you're doing at Moto 1 regards to facilities, thinking about the track layout, the infrastructure, power wash bays, all those things in the UK, then our kids and potential riders would have, more chance to go and train properly.
Yeah.
But it's even small things like...
But I think even here though, like I'd want to do so much more to accommodate kids to get better, but there's too much red tape to do so.
I was just going to get
I can only do so much.
And so many people don't realise that.
No, I want to make a massive triple or a double, but I'm not allowed.
Insurances.
Yeah.
Even track time.
So how are we going to get the kids good at jumping or...
Exactly. So you've got to run sessions because, regards of people out on track, because of the insurance and regulations put in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
You can literally jump on a train, go under a 27-mile or whatever stretch it is of water, and go to Europe, and then suddenly you're riding tracks where like there's no sessions.
No.
So if you want to train, if a rider wants to like put in a 30-minute moto, they can do that.
Yeah.
If they want to just work on one section of the track, you can just do that section, pull off, ride round, and do that bit over. You can't do none of that in the UK.
No.
And that's not because you don't want to do it as a track
we'd love
owner.
to.
Exactly.
It's hard,
you've got your hand tied.
Yeah. It was on. Me and Reese did a podcast about this last week. It's not out yet, but we were just saying, like in America, it's a free for all. I went to a pro day there, and you've got people like Rox and everyone out with autos, but it's safe still. Like the kids come off when they're out.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just can't do it here.
So, with that in mind, that's the kind of thing that I would, again, I'm not sat here doing all the high and mighty thing. I'm a fan of the sport, and I want to see our riders be the best they can be, and our sport be the best it can be in the UK. So I'm not doing all high and mighty, but for me, that's where like Tim in the ACU, they have hopefully the power. It might take a little bit of time, but they are the governing body in the UK, the only one affiliated with the FIM, which is the world governing body of motorcycling. They are our governments, as in the UK government, they are the one recognised by them as the official motorcycling governing body.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of, and I know that this is very much at the forefront of Tim's mind because I've had conversations with him all year. When he's turned up to British Championship rounds, it's that kind of stuff that hopefully they can start making a change.
Yeah.
Insurances, which I know they made a big announcement about a new insurance company they're working with or policy to bring the cost. Great.
Yeah.
But it's the things like that, the red tape of what you can
100%.
and can't do at tracks, and
I think
stuff
ours
like
is
that.
like near enough tripled this year.
Yeah.
Just because there's no one doing it, is there? No one covering tracks.
And in the interim, if we can't make that change that quick, hopefully we'll get enough people in the industry to support an academy concept with funding maybe where we can go, right, we are taking a group of riders when the weather turns crap,
Yeah.
and we are taking them to Europe.
Yeah, because
So they can ride and train properly.
and get to see their competitors if they go into Europe. Yeah.
They're doing it,
Early
and that's
age.
at the minute. And look, I'm not saying every country, every federation are doing it. A lot of them are funding it themselves. But I'm trying to highlight that it's actually even that little bit harder for UK rider and parents to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's travel time. Unless you give up everything and move abroad, you've got to make that trip to...
Yeah, sacrifice everything.
You've got to go to Spain in the off-season as much as you can because you just simply can't...
Yeah.
You can get a great mud rider.
We are.
And it obviously helps you. It helps you if there's ever a mudder and everything. But the reality is, if you actually want to train properly,
Yeah.
you can even have it in America. Christ, like you get good weather for the best part over there, and you've got now riders even exiting California to go to Florida to train because it's even better for them now because of like the humidity.
They've got their options, haven't they?
Yeah.
Such a big country.
Yeah, and we just don't have that. So, I sit here because I'm not alone. There's so many people. Like obviously Dave Willett doing a really good job with the youth team and what he's doing, with his own club down there and all that stuff. He's passionate about it. Dave will tell you this. He's selecting the team. He's doing that. We have got really good riders.
Yeah.
Coming through. We genuinely have.
Yeah.
But it's plugging that hole from getting them from there to getting them back to being a handful of top British talent, in EMX or MX2 and arguably then on to MX1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so kind of indictment of
They're
where
not
we're at.
keeping them here for too long.
I mean, we didn't even have a rider in MX2 this year.
No.
I mean, when I was coming through, it was littered with British riders across all classes.
Too hard to pick.
Yeah, there'd be like a dozen Brits, and fighting in and around like the top 10, or if obviously like Thorpe, Dobby, all them, even at the sharp end, Robbie.
I don't think we've got one in MX2 next year, have we?
I don't know at this stage. I haven't seen who's doing what, but we've got riders that could, given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's just bridging that gap that's kind of...
I'm missing that age gap, and it like don't leave it too late till they go to Europe, and then it's too late for them to progress in it.
Yeah, but even the fundamentals.
World champions at 19 now, 18.
Yeah, I mean, there is a bunch of young British talent racing the British Youth Nationals and doing EMX that I've seen, and I think some of them can make the grade, I mean, Harry Dale's an obvious one for me. A lot of people talking about him. He doesn't even race in the UK. It's a shame, but I totally get where they're at because they've realised his potential. Somebody has his dad or whatever, you know, and they're just like, we're not going to gain anything.
Yeah.
To get him to that level riding in the UK, and that's just, to me, that's a shame for British motocross, because I'd love to.
Yeah,
I want to see him.
You want to be at the next.
Oh, that's being selfish,
in 5
but
years as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Support.
Yeah,
The
you
best
know.
riders.
But he's doing, you know, I finally got the chance to watch the kid ride a couple of times, 2 or 3 times when I was down in Spain. I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of talent that we need to, like, okay, let's, if we want to get back onto the world map as a force in world motocross, because we're a massive industry.
100%, yeah.
You know, we still got so many people buying equipment, you know, kit, riding bikes. We're a massive market in motocross.
Yeah.
We always have been, which is why In Front do as much as they can to still always negotiate with somebody to get a British GP.
So you're talking about the youths. I've got a question. With like Supercross being the future, do you think it's worth any kids going to America instead of Europe? Obviously, it's more expensive, but
Again, personal opinion. If I had the opportunity,
get straight there.
Just for the life experience more than anything else, you know. Like I said, they're just more geared up for motorsport, I think, in general, or sport, as in how they market it in America, all those things. You know, flamboyancy, whatever you want to call it, sometimes becomes a bit nauseating, but they promote and market their athletes and their sport.
If they're doing something,
they do it right. In. So, but just also for a life experience, you know, if I had a kid that raced and I could do that, I'd do that. I would have done it, but that never came around.
Even outside of the sport, it's just
you've
got the outdoor lifestyle, haven't you?
Yeah, I've known a few that have done it. You know, I've obviously travelled and done a few AMA events with Dylan Woodcock when he was on Team Green.
Yeah, I was going to say about that.
It absolutely helped Dylan no end. Not necessarily as a rider even. I think it made him open his eyes to becoming, it shaped him regardless of his personality. No doubt about it. You know, it really channeled him in and he became a better person for those experiences as well. He absolutely did.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, because...
And it makes you grow up quicker, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you're around
you know,
other
and
people.
you could say like the Lawrences, like Roxon, all, you know, any rider from New Zealand, Coppins, Townley, all them having to get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
makes you grow up quicker. You know, they all came to Europe at a young age, had to sort of learn to stand on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely welcome it, because what have you got to lose? You've got more chance of picking up support over there if you excel, and that's again. If people want to argue that case, cool. You know, everybody's got an opinion, but in my personal opinion, if you're doing well, it's harder because it's a bigger country. So you know, to go, but regards of picking up support for your efforts, you've got more chance of it. I've seen it. You know, Dylan, when we went there and raced the Mini-O's, we did the Monster Energy Cup. He had people that neither of us knew.
Yeah.
Coming up to us and offering to help him with whatever brand they were representing. Air filters, tyres, like...
There's more support out there.
Another rider that came from South Africa, I think it was South Africa, raced in the UK for a little while, Marcus Phelps. He raced in the UK for a bit, and then like they were in a position as a family where they could go to America. He's raced AMA, you know, lights and stuff like that.
Even just to say you've done it.
Yeah.
It's
you can actually make money as well. Like amateurs are getting paid.
Look at Max.
A great example to really highlight everything I've said up to this point regards of America and Europe. I can't remember what year it was where they stripped out youth streamer as they were at the time, paying prize money. So Eastie had done a lot of Grand Prix at that point. You know, he was an established GP rider, top 10 factory rider. I'd kind of finished my career at that point, but Eastie was still sort of going. And he went, "Oh, I'm not. That's me done with GPs. Then I'm not. You know, I'm not earning. Why would I go and do it?"
Yeah.
He went off to America, based himself in Ohio, at Fred Andrews' place. Obviously, did the AMA Nationals, and just regionally, by signing up to a Honda contingency program, which all the manufacturers do over there. So you can earn money just by the brand of bike you ride
Yeah.
at regional races. I think Eastie, I remember him saying he earned more in that year of doing that, like, with contingency money, racing regional events and the prize money and nationals than he ever did doing Grand Prix. And he was a top 10 guy.
That's mental, isn't it?
So, he might stand me corrected on that, but I know he was like, well, this is all right, so just, like I said, and even the contingency money, like he was going to a regional race and winning and getting, in some cases, picking up probably $1,000 or $2,000 paid out by Honda.
Yeah.
Not the team he was riding for.
No,
like
it's mad.
Honda.
I remember
put it out
Dylan got
every
into
year,
that,
don't they?
didn't he?
Who's that?
Dylan Woodcock mentioned it about the Kawasaki. Always had a good support.
They set like aside a certain amount. It'd be like 6 million or whatever, just in contingency. Go and race whatever you want to race. If you do well, you get access to that money. We're like here.
Yeah, and again, it's all retrospective, isn't it? I mean, the markets are different. There's, what was it? I think. Listen, this might have changed a lot, and I'm going out on a limb here. I probably got this wrong. I'm going to say it anyway. I think it was around sort of 2004, 2005, maybe. It might have been a bit later than that. But I know at that time, it was somewhere in the 2000s anyway. I can't remember. Mine's a bit... I was having a good time then. They were like California, not America.
Yeah.
Were selling... There was more bikes being sold in California than Europe. Well, I think somebody even told me one time it was like the rest of the world. Or certainly Europe.
Yeah.
Just in California alone.
That doesn't surprise me. It was the main place to go at one point.
So again, it's all retrospective, isn't it? It's like a good example like now is obviously, I've got this role with working with Yamaha, as the Blue Crew ambassador and managing the Blue Crew team. Well, going back to Team Green when Alec Wright started it, and everybody say about brands investing into the sport. Well, it's a business model. You can't always speculate to accumulate.
Yeah.
But there's only so many times or amount of time you can do that.
Yeah.
Before you move from the black into the red into the black and all that kind of stuff, or vice versa. So back then, when Alex started Team Green, the amount of units that were being sold, you could justify then putting the support back in. Now it's so difficult to do that. I mean, if I got my facts right, like they introduced the KX100, there wasn't even really, I think, a 100cc class. That literally came about back in the 70s, if I've got this right. And again, I'm sure somebody will comment. This is what I'm led to believe, or from memory, that he basically went to the ACU and said, let's start a 100cc class. And it was, of course, dominated by Kawasaki because they were the only ones making a 100cc. So the whole lineup virtually, until the others jumped on it, and Yamaha started making 100. I can't remember if the others did. Honda might have done. Was just dominated. So everybody was buying these bikes. So then so then we can put some of that money back in.
Yeah.
And it's the same now for every manufacturer. And people, how you justify the support. Everything's changed so much. The internet has changed everything. We've now got grey imports, which is, I don't know how the loophole works or whatever, but that's obviously not helping. It's helping the consumer, you could argue, because you want to go racing and it takes $1,000 off or $2,000 off of buying a bike.
Yeah.
But regards of supporting the sport, it's not.
No.
Because all of a sudden, the manufacturers, the importers, are not selling enough units because people are going and buying them on the grey market to invest the money back in.
Which is why you're seeing less and less dealers
of course.
now. Yeah.
Well, they're just going to print more money off.
But then that's manufacturers should be in control of that.
Absolutely. And I like I said, I honestly don't know enough about it. I'm not that worldly to know how. If I was that clued up in business, I probably wouldn't be doing what I do. I'd be a fan of the sport still, but I'd be doing it, a bit more, maybe more comfortable motorhome and
not in
that,
England.
yeah, and not doing all the work that I do. But maybe I would actually because I love what I do. But yeah, it's I ain't got no magic ball, but that's a lot of where we're sort of currently at regards of going back to your original question of doing more to support the next generation. It's, it's a little bit of everything.
Brands
it all
aren't
needs
gonna-
sort of it all needs addressing, because it's easy to do the rose tinted glasses thing, because of course it is,
Yeah,
because the world was a different place then.
it's quite far behind now, isn't it? There's a lot to fix.
Things evolve, and they don't always evolve for the better, do they?
No.
Like technology, obviously, I can remember, obviously, back in the day that when you used to write, there seemingly was every year one manufacturer would sort of nail it. And like their bike would be like that. That's clearly the bike.
Yeah, stand out from the rest.
Yeah. And that seemed to sort of happen. Like there was some duffers, 1 year where like, and that probably go across all brands where they just didn't quite maybe get it right. But now, again, like,
They're all similar, aren't they?
yeah, like, let's be honest, a stock bike
It's good.
is, you have to be an exceptional rider, like a real top runner, to say, like, I need more, like,
Yeah.
I'm getting everything out of that bike.
Yeah. 100%.
Particularly when you get onto the big bikes like the 450. I mean, there's more than any rider
Yeah.
needs,
Especially
there.
amateur. Yeah.
An amateur, yeah. So things like that. It's so things, like I said, they evolve, but it's not always for the good.
No.
And of course, the world's got a much smaller place, so everybody, that helps in some way in promoting events and all that kind of stuff, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
at the same time, it only takes somebody to shout loud and hard enough with their own opinion and get a few people on the bandwagon, and everybody starts to believe that as
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
What's your... So you obviously got free flow now, haven't you?
yeah.
What's
yeah.
your plan with that?
So free flow for me is a bit of unfinished business.
Is this from Team Green?
Yeah, prior to Team Green, actually, I kind of always knew in the middle of my sort of pro career, that's when I was in my mid-20s, I was starting to think like, well, again, being a realistic person or realist, like, well, look, I'm not going to be racing high-end motocross when I'm 50. I'm barely into my 30s. So I thought, what would I like to do in this sport when I hang up the racing helmet, as it were, and boots? So I thought, yeah, I'd love to do my own team. I got a little taste for it, a little bit when I was racing GPs, because I was a kind of privateer, so doing it our way. But then I picked up that sponsorship from Animal. I was Animal's like motocross rider. Had some great years with Animal clothing when they were a big high street brand.
Remember that?
That was
Remember
amazing.
Animal?
That was a big deal for me, like to sort of be that, their face of motocross. They were prolific in mountain biking, had the big mountain bike team
cool.
and stuff like that. So, so we had that, and it was all tied in PlayStation for a couple of years. So we had that PlayStation sponsorship and all that. It was really cool. And then I kind of learned a bit more about marketing and sponsorship through them, and how diverse they like to do stuff. And I remember Steve Kitchen, the team manager for Animal mountain biking and everything at the time, saying, look, we're not getting involved with you because we want you to win races. I mean, if you win them, great, but it's more touching in with your personality and the fact that you're kind of out there and it's clear that you're having fun at what you do.
Yeah.
And I remember him actually saying to me, I don't know if it's quite word for word, but he's like, we'd rather that you do a massive like whip or you wreck in a race and everybody's talking about that than you winning it. And I'm like, well, the whips I can do relatively well. I'll try to avoid the wrecks rather than not keep throwing myself down the track just to get some media attention. But I learned quite a bit there, and then in 2004, obviously by then I was already writing a guest column in Dirt Bike Rider. That's how I kind of fell into journalism. So I had the what was the rear gunner, the back page of DBR. So I was getting more used to the other side of the fence, like how like sponsorship works and, the corporate side and what sponsors want and how to sort of portray yourself, market yourself. And then in 2004, I got asked to be involved with the organising team to run the British GP on the Isle of Wight. Rob Bradley, a businessman over there, wanted to run the GP, but he also wanted to start a team off the back of it. So he kind of coaxed me in to help with the running of the GP and the track design with Johnny Hamilton. So we kind of did that together. We actually moved over there, lived there for a month or two, designing and building the track. And then, so he wanted to start this RTT team, which was what his business was called. So we started the RTT Honda team, and I said, okay, well, I'll do that, but I'm sort of winding it down. I'm sort of past my best. I'm not a GP rider anymore. Done that. I'm kind of on the downward trajectory. So I'll come in as a rider, but also I can bring like my personal sponsors into the team.
Yeah.
Animal was one of them. I was also sponsored by, at the time, Arnett or Arne, sunglasses, Globe, trainers, skate shoes and stuff like that. So I brought muck off quite a few personal sponsors into the team and helped sort of set up the team.
Yeah.
Anyway, that all kind of went pear-shaped. Rob did the GP for 1 year, and then for whatever reasons, he couldn't continue. Never really sure why, but it is what it is. So after that stopped, that's when simultaneously Tim March from Moto magazine had already started. Had been going for about half a year with 4130 Publishing, and Tim had already sounded me out prior to that, or just around that time. And I said, look, Tim, he'd asked if I'd come in and like be involved with the magazine, maybe be the editor. I said, I'd love to, but I've got this, and I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
So he kind of kept it on the bubble anyway. So once the whole thing on the Isle of Wight obviously didn't continue, they ran a GP the following year, but that was Mark Chamberlain took it on, and Gareth and the Chamberlain brothers. So yeah, and I learned a lot from doing that RTT team and being involved with that. So I thought, right, I took up, Tim called again, and I'm like, right, I've finished doing that. And he said, right, okay, let's get you involved with Moto as assistant editor, because by that time, obviously they had Wob at the helm, steering the ship really nicely with all his contacts in America and stuff like that. That's what made the magazine what it was. And I knew their background, and I knew how good all their publications were. They had like Dirt magazine and Ride magazine and all these really cool magazines. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to take the journalism side further rather than just doing a column.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took up that job, and I thought, right, I'm going to start my own team. So Twisted 7 was born. And by that point, I was doing something with Kawasaki. They offered to like help me out because when I was actually had the back page of the column, column of DBR, they loaned me a couple of 125s for a year because they obviously knew that I had loads of exposure for the bike. And I got to know Brian McKenzie a little bit, that was on Team Green at that time as a youth rider.
What year was this?
So I started Twisted 7 in 05. Yeah.
I do remember that.
But I think I was on the Kawasaki in 03. I can't remember. Was it 11? 01 or 03? I honestly, they all roll into one. Somewhere in there as well. We also had Foot and Mouth, where we had a year off of racing, didn't we? And all that. So anyway, yeah, I spoke to Steve Gutteridge. I was on a bike test for Kawasaki because at that point, Steve had got me in to be basically a Kawasaki test rider, proper, not just writing for DBR or for the magazines. So me and Ryan Vose, he got us in to be the test development riders for the new 450. So we were the part of the European test team when we were developing the 450 before it went on sale, which was an amazing experience. And we were just sat on some tyres, I think it was Grovendonch or however you pronounce it, the big hole in the ground in Germany. Big sad, and that was it. And he said, what are your plans now then? I'm like, well, I'm going to probably start my own team. And literally, as soon as I said I'm probably going to start my own team, as soon as I finished the sentence, he went, well, we'll get behind that.
Oh, mega.
I was like, okay, well, that's kind of turned into a definite then. And that was it. And literally, I said, okay. I said, it's no more than a concept at the minute. And he's like, well, what are you thinking? I'm like, well, I've just told you. I haven't really thought of anything other than saying I'm going to do it. So I came up with a name. That just randomly came in my head. That was a little nod to the posse, if you want to call it that when we did GPs, there was always like seven of us really, always up to mischief. So I was just driving along
cool.
one day, and I knew I wanted to get a number involved with the team because, you know, I think numbers are just more identifiable, but just a little bit easier to market.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of associate with them. So I thought, yeah, Twisted 7. And then I spoke to Steve, and it was like, well, look, Brian's coming out of youth motocross. You know, he's coming out. You know, would you consider doing something with Bri? I was like, I'd love to, because Bri really impressed me when he was doing the 125s at the KWS series back in the day. And I had, when I was riding the 125, so I was racing against him. He'd just come into adults. I was the old duffer on the way out. And I blew something went wrong with my bike. And again, you know, my brother went on hand, and I said, I'm not much of a mechanic. So I put a call out, like, has anybody got a spare part? Because I didn't have it. And then Brian not only had the spare part, but he actually came over and literally rebuilt my bike between motos.
No way.
And I'm racing against him.
Support. You won't get that nowadays.
Yeah, and he was like whatever he was, 18 or 19. I don't even know how old he was. But he was the lighter side of 20, definitely.
It's mad.
And I'm like, this kid's amazing. Like, to do that.
And then racing.
And I'm, you know, he's a competitor.
Yeah.
So as soon as he said that, I was like, yep, love to work with Bri. So that's how Twisted 7 started. And then that rolled for all the way through to 09, 08. We had Billy McKenzie on the, you know, sort of as like a guest rider when he was a factory Kawasaki rider.
Yeah, remember that.
So he'd come in and we'd do all the setup, and he'd kind of drop in. Then we went to Honda for a year, and then Husqvarna, but then it was just like, again, for me, it was getting a bit like, God, this has grown quick. And like, you know, I don't own a business. I'm not throwing my own money in it to keep going. I've got to work really hard at getting resources into it. And it was all getting a bit of a drag. So I just kind of like, well, it got harder and harder. Then I got involved with a potential sponsor that did sponsor the team a little while. That turned sour. I got sort of stung and stiffed by that guy, lost a fair amount of money that I did have. And I'm like, right, I'm not continuing that, you know. And then he wanted the brand name. I'm like, I'm not even going to fight it. It's just a name. It's cool. It's a name that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
But it is just a name.
Yeah.
And I literally thought to myself, I'm going to get out of this because I'm not going to fight him over it and lose more money. If he wants to have the brand, he can have it. And I'll just come back further down the line with a new name.
Yeah.
Fast forward to, I finally got around to coming back to it, because obviously the Twisted 7 thing at that same time, that's when the guys at Kawasaki knew what was going on. And Ross Burridge, who'd taken over from Steve Gutteridge as the UK guy, I just got that call in the winter. He's just like, look, rather than us supporting your team, whatever you're going to do with it, if you're going to come up with a new name or whatever, you know, we'd like you to come and run Team Green. Yeah. And I just went straight back to the 80s in my mind, thinking, well, yes, you know, because cool. Like that's got so much history and heritage. To say that you even like managed it for 1 year, let alone, you know, like be involved with it as long as I was. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even let Ross finish the sentence.
No,
but cool. Yes, definitely, 100%.
Well, Team Green's still a thing now, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I ran Team Green for, I think it was 8 or 9 years. Could have been even 10. Can't remember exactly. Started it in 13 and went right up to, when was it, 19 or 20, I think. And again, around sort of COVID time or whatever. And obviously Kawasaki wasn't making a 125. The 65 was a solid, reliable little bike, but compared to the, you know, the competition, it wasn't
not quite quick
race
enough.
Spec. The 85 was good. Again, just needed a bit of work, but you know, it was a solid, fast, reliable bike. If we had a super mini class, then as proved in America, the KX is amazing.
Yeah.
But it was just getting harder and harder to run Team Green, because like, obviously it's Kawasaki's team, and you want to make sure that we got front runners and developing riders, ultimately onto GP riders.
Yeah.
And, you know, to have that kind of missing link in the chain, the 125, was an issue. You know, I was trying to speak to parents and riders and say, look, get on the team. We'll support you all the way. And their first counter argument was like, well, what about the 125?
Yeah.
Because it was a manufacturer team, it wasn't like a team supported by a manufacturer. We couldn't do the whole like dress up a gas or a KTM in green and expect it to stick, because it's highlighting the problem even more.
Is that why it stopped then?
It's still going. It was still going because then the directive from above, and me and Ross sat down and we said, well, look, the 250 is a good bike. So rather than maybe having younger riders, we just concentrate on that 250 where they got their last year in youth and maybe their first 2 years in adults, and we kind of like just bridge the gap.
Push them into the MX2.
Yeah, and we develop them that way.
Yeah.
But we hopefully take a bit of the pressure off, because that's the two big steps for me in motocross is when you go from an 85 to a 125. But the biggest step of all, as we've highlighted already, is when you go from literally from youth to adult. It's,
100%.
It's a completely different world. You get parents and fans going, oh, look at his lap times. He's on par with him. In a separate race. Stick him out with the adult when you started getting
again,
beat up and pushed around and bullied, and then they're confident.
Yeah.
So, and in the end, I'm just like, it was a really nice conversation, and I'd like to think they might say differently. I got a really good relationship with Kawasaki. It's a massive part of my life. Doing Team Green, and they were exceptional. They are just a really nice bunch of guys to work with. It wasn't like an intimidating environment like being on Dragon's Den or something like that.
They're not pressurizing.
No, when we went to have conversations, it probably was like, come to Kawasaki, and then we went down to the pub and had a couple of pints, and just, they were really good and are still undoubtedly really good guys to be involved with. So the relationship with Kawasaki strong, great times with Ross and Steve, and I always stop and have long chats with them. So they're doing good things, but it just like, I don't know, like almost like an athlete, I suppose, or anybody in business. I just kind of felt like taking it as far as we could. I personally felt that I couldn't really do any more than what I was doing. And I just thought it's time for a fresh challenge. So that's when I went, right, I'm going to go away, take a year out of running teams or whatever. And that's when I thought, right, I'm going to go back to basics. I'm going to go back to running my own team. That's when I come up with a new name.
Where did the name come from?
Again, I just a play on words, I suppose, from my, from writing features and being, involved in media and journalists and all that kind of stuff. I just thought, I want to get a number involved. Obviously, I don't want it to be the same number. So, and then I was just like a play on words. We're like, well, so it's when you're feeling good and life's going all right, you just kind of like everything's sort of free flowing. It's just like you're feeling the moment. It just comes easy. So
same with riding, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's where the name came from. And again, I wanted a number involved. So Free Flow was started, and then I thought, right, okay, this time I'll approach some riders that I know and I've built a bit of a relationship with. But what we do is, rather than getting many manufacturer support, the parent can go and choose which bike they ride, or the kid, and I'll just package the rest.
Yeah.
So I'll go and get
sponsors.
Get support with tires, kit, and then we can just make the bikes a universal color. So whatever bike they're riding, like let's say white, which I think we did in our first year, white or black. And then, so Harrison Greenoff, and the Greenoff family got a good relationship with. They used to race at Hans and Dorset back in the day. And Harrison's a good kid, very talented. So I trained him for a little bit, went to Florida with him prior to Free Flow. And he rode for the Team Green Academy. We had a little academy team as well under the main team. So he rode for them for 1 year. So he was the obvious one. Again, Zane Stevens, because I used to race with his dad. And we were just talking, so he came on board and drew stock. So that was the riders we had in the first year. And we were doing all right. We started well. They were getting good results, and I've got a long-standing relationship with Madison, who was like sponsoring Team Green and sponsored Twisted 7 prior to that. So just like I did with RTT, really, it's still the same brands. Just got involved with Free Flow, and that was that. And I thought, yeah, okay, this is cool. We're up and running. Then, and this is where it takes a turn, I bumped into Paul Denning, who runs Crescent Yamaha, which is now Yamaha's biggest off-road dealer, as far as I'm aware. Certainly the biggest in the south. I knew Paul a little bit because he, again, used to race a bit of motocross down from where I am. And I just saw him at Rogers Hill practice track. He was out riding and I was just there. we just caught up and he's like, what are you doing? I told him. And he's like, that's cool, you know, all that kind of stuff. Had a bit of chat, spoke about World Superbike, all that kind of stuff. And left it at that. And then I think it was a couple of months later, maybe a bit more, I don't know. I was at the first VMXDN at Foxhill, not the one at Farley.
Yeah.
And he was there. And we just started chatting again. And he's just like, we spoke a bit more and I'd kind of, I'm not sure if I hinted it, but anyway, he's like, look, I've been thinking more about, you know, what you're saying. He's like, maybe we could do something with Yamaha. I said, so look, just drop me an email of like what you think, and we'll take it from there and maybe like come into the shop. So I did that. He replied. He's like, yeah, come on in. So I did. But then I think it was 48 hours before going there. He sent me another message to say, look, I've got the new marketing manager for Yamaha coming in as well. Would you be okay if you know, if you sat in and we had a meeting with him? I'm like, yeah, okay. So I went there with no expectations other than a chat, and just like the Team Green thing, really, like hour and a half later, I just kind of walked out of there, going from running my own little team to it being the official Yamaha youth team.
It's good.
And literally like the blueprint of them sort of sounding me out to manage the Blue Crew program. That didn't happen on the day. They offered me that job, I think 2 months later or something like that. But the initial conversation was all about like, okay, we've got this Blue Crew program. We need somebody on the ground with experience that that understands, has been involved with youth motocross. And I guess I ticked all the right boxes. And so literally kind of within the space of a year, 18 months, without looking for it, came from running Team Green to now doing the Blue Crew program. And for me, Yamaha, because I started my career on Yamaha and was on Yamaha through most of my youth career and then the early parts of my GP career. It's obviously it's a brand that, that's got like a personal connection for me. So it did feel a little bit like, as much as the Team Green thing was fantastic and I wouldn't want to change it.
Yeah.
Plus the relationships I've got from that, which are brilliant. It did feel a little bit like, okay, this is kind of full circle, like coming home.
Yeah. It's cool.
And the fact that they have, Yamaha, other than the Austrian brands, they have the complete product range to work with for
full
youth
package
motocross.
now,
For me, it was just like, well, of course, yes, I would gladly do that.
So have you just got 3 125 riders?
No, we've so with Free Flow, my own personal team sits within any rider that buys a Yamaha can sign up to Blue Crew. Any kid that literally from 65 to 125, you don't have to be associated. You can just sign up and you're part of Blue Crew. So the team sits within that. But so for Free Flow, we sat down and we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? Well, obviously we've got a product range. So we decided pretty early on that it would be good to have at least one rider on each model of YZ.
Yeah.
So that's how we started it. And the Blue Crew program currently in Europe goes up to 125s only.
Yeah.
In America, Blue Crew is a different thing. Blue Crew is the symbol, if you want to call it that, for the entire amateur program. So you can sign up to Blue Crew even on a 450 in America. But in Europe, it's just from 65 to 125, focusing on the kids. So, that's what we did. So we put a rider in each category. On the first year, we had, three riders, 4, because we also had Hudson Roper, who was already riding for the Team Green Academy team. But he was moving up to 250. So that's when I kind of pitched it to Yamaha. I was like, okay, we'll have a rider on a 65, 85, and 125, and they'll be like the Blue Crew riders. But we also need to show, and going forward, we still continue to show that we're going to try and put a program in place where we bridge the gap from youth to adult. And that's something we're working on. That's the royal we. Constantly in conversations with Yamaha and Crescent and everybody involved about trying to, over the next 3 to 5 years, put a program in place where
Yeah.
eventually we'll take riders into pro racing in the UK, but that's not happening just yet, but it's, we're working on it. So hopefully that'll happen soon. And that's how it started. Yeah. So we had 4 riders, but one in each category. We kind of hit the ground running pretty good. We had a lot of good support, good brands. I always try to make the team, look as professional as possible, certainly regards of the kit and the bike designs and,
Yeah. Looks smart.
as possible. And, so, little Tommy Word, I saw him in autos when I first started the team. I'm like, that kid's, he's pretty nifty, and he's got, had a good, I liked his character. He was kind of like, he's a right little chatterbox, and he's always like, so he was the first kind of rider that I approached about being on the team, and luckily they said yes, and they're still on the team. Ollie Bubb obviously became our 125 rider, and he did well. He obviously finished in the top 4. He's won a championship this year as well. So the Bridgestone. So yeah, little Jamie. And then we got Jamie Curry in this following year for the 85 rider. He went out and won the small wheeled arena cross title in his first few months on the bike. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And we're just at a level now, we're 3 years in, and that's where I'm like, for me, everybody's got different ways of doing things, but I always try to be realistic, use that a lot because that's what I try to be. So first, 3 years, I always just try to get some solid foundations in, just keep, don't shoot too far too soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get some stability, just get it all settled. And now we're coming into our 4th year. So now I want to keep evolving it. And eventually my aim is to try and take some riders and actually be a bit of a, take the riders into Europe a bit more, as a team.
Yeah.
Go and do the EMX with them, try to get to the events myself.
Yamaha support that as well.
I'd like to think so. Like I said, it's an ongoing process. We take it year by year. I'm not signed up to anything like a massive multi-year deal or anything like that, because the landscape changes so much in our sport.
I think that's what it needs, though, isn't it? If every manufacturer did that.
Yeah, the Blue Crew program is obviously helping because it covers all of Europe. You know, I think Yamaha UK, again, not being in Europe post-Brexit and all that kind of stuff. Although obviously they're part of Yamaha Europe, just a little bit behind the 8 ball regards of building the program. Through no fault of their own. That's just, like I said, that just all those things of not maybe being in mainland Europe as a business. But we're building it nicely, and there's, the last 2-3 years I've done it. Numbers are growing all the time, which is, I'm not saying that's because of me, I don't mean it like that. I'm just saying it's nice, it's rewarding to see.
Yeah. Of course, you keep putting the effort in.
Numbers go up,
Yeah.
and more parents and more kids look to go to a Yamaha. And I think last 2 years, particularly this year, was a big step forward with certainly in the 125 class.
Yeah.
Because the bike was clearly at the sharp end
100%, yeah.
and competitive. And now we just got to keep working and try and replicate that down the line with the YZ85 and the 65, and just get more kids on it, more brand loyal, make them realise that the bike is capable of winning.
Competitive, yeah.
And then hopefully that will snowball a bit. And of course, the benefit of signing up to the Blue Crew, if they're good enough, they're going to get to be selected to go and race the super finale and ride at the Motocross of Nations, which,
It's cool for a kid.
if I'd have been that 11-year-old kid running down to Hurst Castle and back, and somebody said to me, "Oh, you're going to get to ride at the Motocross of Nations if you perform," I would have. I'd
Do another 2 laps.
Yeah, I'd have gone another 2 laps around the castle, and the intensity would have risen. So, yeah, it's going
But that
really
just
good.
shows, though, doesn't it? Like, if they've got something there to aim for, like you just said, you'd do another 2 laps.
It's mind blowing, I've seen it
But there's
firsthand.
nothing there to
No,
aim
I mean,
for.
the first time they all did it, the first one I did, it'd been going obviously before I got involved. The first one I did was 23, which was at, would have been Ernay, I think. Yeah, I think that's right. Little Tommy got selected based off his results, because how it works is you got to race. Your riders are selected from their performances at the British Championship. because
Yeah.
it's all affiliated and tied into the FIM. So the ACU are the only federation in the UK that are affiliated with the FIM. So therefore, we look at results in the British Championship and European motocross if they're doing them, and other things. There's a panel of us that choose the riders. It's not just me. Brian Jorgensen's involved, management at Yamaha UK. There's a few of us that look at it all and assess who gets to go. And I got to say, that very first one, it's just like, I could see that. I mean, I was buzzing and I wasn't even riding it. So to see like Tommy in particular, because he was, the youngest one there, just walking around, the fact that he was just there, let alone he was riding
It's a real
Erne.
experience for him.
And then he went and nearly whole shot, which was insane. And it was just like, literally, he couldn't actually, at that age, almost like take it all in.
Yeah.
It's like,
I bet he couldn't. And when it's over, you'd bet he was like,
Yeah.
what's just happened?
and Ollie performed well. He was in the 125 class. He was running close to in the top 10 there, and then some rider literally crashed in front of him and he just couldn't avoid him. But disappointment or not, we were all on the ferry back home and he was just, that's when it was almost starting to sort of sink in.
Was
He's
it?
like, I just asked him, how was that? He's like, it was just insane. I can't believe I've just
And without
raced
that,
around.
they wouldn't have had that opportunity,
Yeah.
would they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we want to build on that. That's the whole point. It's not just that side of it. Me and Brian Jorgensen, who's like one of the Yamaha Europe's coaches, me and Brian are talking more about for him to come over more, and collectively me and him like doing more like Yamaha coaching days, Blue
Like
Crew
an
coaching
academy.
days. Yeah, because we do a ride day, which is
Yeah.
open to everybody that signs up.
Yeah.
But that's a bit of both. That's like a fun day where we all get together, but we also we do a little bit of coaching and a little bit of basic coaching pointers. But me and Bri would love to get it to a point which we've all got to, we've got to agree it with Yamaha and build it right. So again, don't rush it, get it right.
Yeah.
But we want to try and put some kind of structure in place where, because he's busy,
Yeah.
I'm busy. It's not like we can do it every week. And just put a program in place where if you're a Yamaha rider, if you sign up to Blue Crew, we can maybe do a handful of them a year where we can actually do proper coaching days and get into it. Again, all as a benefit,
Yeah. 100%.
not at any extra cost, hopefully. You buy a Yamaha and you get this.
Yeah. It gives them incentive to want one, doesn't it?
Yeah. And again, that's hopefully where, we can get more people. Again, this is me literally with my Yamaha hat on. More people, buying the brand, and therefore, the more people that buy legitimate YZs, the more chance we've got of putting it back. Again, that's
Yeah.
the royal we. I don't. I
but
don't.
that's a good thing
I do
to
not
do.
make those decisions. I'm not business. I'm not
You
management
just keep
to that
feeding
level.
it and say, come on.
Well, look, I try. I mean, the point is, they've offered me the job. They obviously feel I can bring something to the table. So
Get your
with
point.
all my I'd like to think of experience, because I've never been out of this game since 1981,
No, exactly.
and I think I've worn enough caps, and I've been, if you wrote a CV, I'd like to think I've got a pretty comprehensive one. It's
Yeah.
not just riding. I've like I said, I've been both sides of the fence and very much entwined into the industry. So put it this way: if I don't know what I'm doing now, coming up to 53 years of age and been involved in the sport as long as I have, then let's be honest, I'm never going to know, am I?
No, and the amount of things you've been involved with, like even doing commentator stuff now, you'll see things from different angles from what you did as a rider or as a team manager,
Yeah, exactly.
owner or manager. Or
Yeah, you absolutely do. I'm sure Mailer would say the same and everything like that. When it comes to the commentary, you just, if you've ridden at any level, you've got a perspective.
yeah,
If you've ridden at a high level, I guess you've got a bit more of an enhanced perspective, and the backstories and what a rider goes through and stuff like that. So you do see some things maybe that others don't see, and you also know or you put yourself in the position where the rider is.
yeah,
So you can kind of mentally imagine what they're going through, and you can then go on your own past experiences in a race environment of maybe how you'd react.
yeah,
Everybody's different, But for example, if you're commentating on a race and you see somebody going hard, if you know the character of the riders, you're going to go, right, well, I wouldn't have done that to him, because You know that's coming back to you before the end of the race.
That must be hard though to think on the spot, like, and what to say.
I don't overthink about it. I think that's the worst thing. Everybody will have different. Everybody can prep in different ways, right? And everybody's different, and that's what makes it so good. Everybody's got a different way of doing things. And there's no right or wrong. For me personally, I've always been spontaneous, and I do think a lot. Like I say, I probably overthink, but when it comes to stuff like that, I like to go on gut feeling. And it was the same when I really fell into journalism, and started becoming like writing features other than a column about myself, conducting interviews and all that kind of stuff. I have never, ever, and then call this right or wrong, I'd like to think some people might pull me up on it if they read back some of the interviews and stuff that I've done. I have never prepared for any interview, no matter who it is.
That's mad.
Ever. I've sat down in an interview and I never know what the first thing I'm going to ask or question is until I sit down and do it.
No.
Same with the podcast I still do now with Wobbs. Same with any interview, like I said, ever written, no matter who it was and how big they were in the sport. I'm like, I just feel that's not conversation if you're too constructed.
Yeah, 100%. We haven't planned any of this, have we?
No.
As you can probably tell.
No, exactly. Which is, but then, okay, I think I've even said this on the Talk Moto podcast, that's, to me, that's not real life. And I'm going to use the same sort of synopsis I said before. If you've got a bunch of mates, we've all got WhatsApp groups now, haven't we? They're varying ones, right? We're all on WhatsApp, or that's how we communicate these days. So if you're going, right, we're all going out for our regular, I don't know, you all might meet up on a Thursday for football, or you go to the booze on Friday or whatever. I've never known ever in my life where you go, right, we're all going out tonight. Here's the agenda.
Don't, dear.
Right, you go there, you get around it, you sit down, and you go with the flow.
Free flow.
You don't sit there and go, right, I'm really going to bring that up tonight. We're going to talk about that, and I'm not going to.
No, you don't.
The conversation don't flow that way.
No.
That's not what it's about.
No, it's best just on the spot, I think.
Imagine if you were that organised. Imagine if you were literally
life won't let you, would it?
A teenager, and you're dating. You're in the infancy of dating, and you're getting down to your first experience in the bedroom. Now you imagine if you actually had bullet points to follow, how that would go.
Yeah, you wouldn't be in there very long, would you?
Hold on, love, just a minute. I've got it.
Step one.
No, we've moved on. We've gone straight to step 4. Can we just go back? You don't, do you?
No.
You literally go with.
Too late. I've done. I'm off.
You've got to have. That's what makes life real. So, when it comes to the commentary, I mean, of course, notes, and I'd like to think, by instinct and by being around in sport so much, I know who the riders are. Of course, everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're going to call the wrong name and number because there's so many names and numbers going through your head, particularly when you're live streaming.
So when you are live streaming, are you watching the screen or watching the race?
Yeah, we're watching the screen. We don't get
Which
to
is
see.
hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because you can't see the numbers because of either filled in or the back. They've got the back to you. Or
we have real life issues. Like this year in particular, we work at the British Championship, like a little box trailer. It's got one of those kind of like perspex or, fiberglass roofs. And it was, I can't remember which round it was, but it was really quite hot and sunny. And then, as the sun came round, me and Phil were just burning like in a Tupperware box. But then the light sort of came round onto the screen, through, and it's like, it was, and our headphones didn't have enough cable for us to sort of try and get far enough away from the screen to see it. So we're in there, we're making all these shapes, trying to holding up programs and, so.
You should film that.
It's not, it's spontaneous, but certainly when it comes to identifying riders and stuff like that, like I said, the very best, and I'm not putting myself in that bracket, we all make mistakes, but I said, because you've got so many names and numbers going around, sometimes they just sort of stay. They don't go out of your head when you call another rider and it's still in your mind, your memory.
Yeah.
So that happens, but it doesn't happen that often, I'd like to think. But regards of identifying riders, you know, like I said, I've grown up watching a lot of these riders from when they were literally kids. So more often than not, I don't need to sometimes on the screen even like see the number
Yeah.
or their kit.
You can just tell
I
from
can
their
just
style
tell
or-
by their style.
Yeah.
You know, like it dawned on me like beginning of last year. I'm like, when Conrad was battling with Hurlins, and you know, I was just like, Jesus, I was commentating on Conrad when he was in 65s,
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
and I was like, that's when I was like, okay, I'm knocking on now. You know, I'm like, I've been doing this a long time. I was, you know, obviously I first started when the first commentary gig, again, was by all the things that have happened to me are just by like I said, by chance. And is that coincidence? I don't know, because I don't set a plan. I kind of go with the flow, hence the name of the team. That all came from the Red Bull Pro Nationals. That's simply how it started, because Matt got me in off the back of being the editor for Moto magazine, and I stepped out of Moto because they wanted to take it in a very... It was bought out in a consortium of media groups, and then they very much wanted to make it a different magazine than what we all wanted it to be, the original crew. So slowly but surely we all kind of disbanded, and I was the sort of last man standing, and I was just like, I'm done with this. You know, this is not the magazine that I believe Moto should have been or was. So I bailed on that. And then Matt offered me a job to be, I think my official title was head of communications at the Red Bull Pro National Series. And that's where basically I wrote all the program, the press releases. I'd be in charge of contacting all the, because he's big on like regional media, contacting all the radio stations, regional TV, you know, ad campaigns in in newspapers, all that stuff. So that was my job. And then I think it was at Dunn's, my first ever commentary gig. It was Justin Morris was doing it, along with Christian Stevenson. You know, DJ Barbecue used to do the Arena Cross, the American guy. And so for whatever reason, and I can't recall, but Justin couldn't make it. Something happened, and he literally couldn't make it. So Matt said, "Look, can you jump on the mic? You know, because Justin's not going to be able to make it today." And I was like, "Yeah, of course, yeah." So I did, and joined Christian, and then that was it.
It's just escalated from there.
I did it. I literally did it once, and then I don't know who made the decision. I guess ultimately Matt. I don't know if Christian influenced him or not. I don't know. And then after that, Matt spoke to me in the week. He said, "Right, if I chuck you, a little bit more dough on a weekend, can you also do the commentary?" I'm like, "Yeah, but as long as you, I'll say it now, Matt. As long as you know that obviously while I'm doing that, for 2 days solid, I won't necessarily be able to pump out some of the other stuff that you need. You know, I'm like, there's got to be a compromise. I can't do it all."
How did that compromise go?
Well, he obviously he went for it, because I ended up doing that, and then of course the Red Bull Pro Nationals, after however many years it stopped, and then Matt, Matt then turned his attention back to indoor stuff, because he did Supercross, UK Supercross, before he did Arena Cross, and then he rebranded it as Arena Cross, and again that's where he just said, "Right, I want you to be the resident expert," and he got Tim Warwood in. Tim now does the Olympics, Winter Olympics for BBC, and Christian Stevenson. There was a free team, free personnel. They were the two sort of hosts, and I was like the race commentator. And the very first one we did at that was at the O2 in 2013. And I've done every one since.
So yeah, what is next? What is next for your plans? What you do? What's more commentary or?
Yeah, I like to keep busy, fall to myself. I've said it before. I love what I do, and nobody forces me to do it. I'm not like anybody kind of holds me down and threatens me to do what I do in the sport. Do I bite off more than I can chew? Some would argue that I probably do, but I don't really care because I love it.
Doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't matter. I'm not worried about people's opinions in regards of that. If I feel I've got genuinely time to do something and invest my energy into it, I will. I spin a lot of plates. I wear a lot of caps. But I like what I do, so it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me engrossed in the sport. It just gives you focus, doesn't it? I mean, I wake up, each day, and I've got a different. I flip from one thing for the other throughout the day. I don't even kind of manage my time where I'm going, right, today's a Blue Crew day.
You sound like
Tomorrow's a free flow day. The next day is going to be focusing on, stuff I need to do for the live stream preparation. None of that. I kind of flip from one to other, varying email accounts. But for me, going forward, I've got obviously more gigs coming up, literally in the last few days. It's all come around very sudden. I've been asked to co-host the World Supercross Tour, which is amazing with Lee Hogan. Lee obviously does the Australian motocross coverage and Australian Supercross series. So I've done 2 World Supercross rounds before. I've done the first one I did was Villa Park.
Yeah,
with Roger Warren. That was difficult for many reasons. We had the rain leading up to the event, and it was all and they were still in their first year pretty much, and there was
learning.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was difficult, Not for me and Roger, but my experience of working events, I could see how like they were. It was still in its infancy, But now I'm kind of excited by it. I could see the improvement by the time I went and did. They asked me the second time, which was I went and did Abu Dhabi, which is real cool. And I could see already how it was like they were improving dramatically regards of,
Even with the organisation.
Yeah, because it's like you got to start somewhere. It's no matter, like any new business, it's not, you don't just hit the ground running.
No.
No matter how much experienced people you bring in, there's personalities to gel, there's all that. So I could see improvement with that. And I think, certainly from where I sit at the minute, I'm not involved with it until I get to Canada next week. With new management, new personnel involved, I should imagine, they've learned so much and it's going to go up another level. Bringing Kurt Nichol in with all his experience, not just from in the sport as a racer. Kurt obviously was a big part of the Nitro Circus Tour, KTM, manager, North America.
Yeah.
So, it's not Kurt Nichol, the racer. It's, he's going to bring a lot to the table. I see they've just announced Thomas Covington as being like a rider's representative and help with that. So they're making moves, and they've asked me a few times and I haven't been in a position to do it, and I've had to turn them down a couple of times. Unfortunately, I had to turn them down last year because it was right at the time when Mum was on end of life care. But they were really understanding, and I said, "Oh God, talk about in a predicament, But obviously, I can't. I'm not going to be going to Australia when Mum's towards the end of her life. So that didn't happen. But they've asked me again, and I've accepted it. So other than Argentina, which is this weekend, because they wanted an Argentinian speaking host, which I'd get, and I'll be honest, my Argentinian is not as good as it could be. But I'm doing the other 4 rounds with Lee, so
it'll be a good experience.
Really looking forward to that.
And travel, get to travel.
Yeah, get to travel, albeit in and out. We don't. It's not like
you don't get to see a lot.
No, like literally
hotel, track.
Yeah, like
food.
Well, I've just had to amend flights to Australia because they originally had me coming in the night before, but I wasn't landing till I think it was like 11:45. So by the time I'd get to the hotel, it was going to be like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then to get up and do the gig the next day, I'm like, can I just push back a day?
I have some sleep, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that'd be great. So just, but I'm really looking forward to that. Obviously, I've got a long-standing association with the Arena Cross, so I'd like to think that will continue, and, we've got some of them coming up. So Matt's, scaling down a little bit, but I completely understand why. Like I said, it's tough times.
Costs.
To keep it on track, and I think there's going to be a few changes with that as well, from what I'm hearing, in regards of how it's structured, and formats and stuff like that. So that would be good to freshen it up.
And the British doing that again?
I hope so. I certainly finished this year and spoke to Paul and Neil and sort of just put my cards on the table. I've been working for them pretty much other than 1 year the whole time they did the MX Nationals.
Yeah.
Could have been 1 or 2 years. And then obviously, we introduced, I say we, it wasn't we, it was more Neil, came up with let's start live streaming events post-COVID, which is how the live stream started. And of course they're now the promoters for running the British Championship. So it just kind of natural progressed from MX Nationals to doing the British. And I'd like to think that they'd want me back to do it.
Definitely.
Others might argue
Yeah.
or differ, but as far as I'm concerned, it's been a really good year. I've enjoyed working with Phil. Phil does a great job. I think he's got a great voice for it, and he's very knowledgeable and passionate about the sport as I am. So we've got ideas that we want to present to them. It's up to them to whether they can justify it and budgets. But both me and Phil and a lot of people involved with British motocross have got ideas how we'd like to improve the production to get it, but it costs time and money.
Yeah.
To get it more on a level of what you see from In Front or AMA, a bit more behind the scenes stuff, a few more cameras, all that kind of stuff. So fingers crossed, the powers that be, can get more people on board the live stream so we can improve the production.
Which leads on to my last question, actually. With your experience from being a rider and obviously commentator and being in the sport for that long, from where the British motocross is now, what do you think needs to happen for it to come back good again or improve?
First and foremost, I think we've kind of steadied the ship. And again, listen, when I say we, I mean collectively. I'm not. We should all be pulling together. But this year, I've seen a noticeable difference. And I want to say I've seen a noticeable difference in not necessarily how things have improved, which I think they have. Like the media's kind of improved a bit and come back on track. Obviously, the live stream, which we didn't really have for the British before on a regular basis. The biggest fundamental difference I've seen and felt this year as a fan, and I do mean that. I'm not wearing a free flow hat, a Yamaha hat, or whatever. I'm on about like my love for wanting to see British motocross be the best it can be. It was the vibe. It just came back a bit this year. It just seemed people were happier, having more fun. Didn't seem so much like, drawn faces and almost the feeling that people were there out of necessity more than wanting to be there.
Yeah.
It just felt more enjoyable, a bit more relaxed. Now, I don't know if that, like I said, if that, it could be a combination of all sorts of things, but I think Paul making the decision, I can only assume it's Paul, instigating the decision anyway, to strip out the youth classes, made a difference to the vibe of the weekend, because all of a sudden, like, there was time to breathe for the staff and people involved. When you've got racing coming at you flat out, that might be good for the fan who goes, I'll watch that one, I'll go and get a drink and something while that one's on. But for the staff, that's like there's no let up.
Yeah.
Certainly doing like the live stream, when we used to do the live stream for the MX Nationals, it was like 18 races on one day and like 22 on the other. We started at 8:30 and we spoke all day live stream, one race after the other, running from the winner's circle to there, then do the presentation afterwards. As much as we all love it, I was like, I was getting in the car to go home. I'm like, I'm fried. Like my brother would ring up, say, how would it go? And I'm like, look, stop ringing me on a Sunday. I've been talking all day. I'm not going to repeat it again to you. And I literally said to him, why don't you just watch the live stream? Now I don't have to go through this with you every time. So I think that give it that balance of like good racing, but also so fans can get around and look at the track, speak to the riders, all that has been good. Youth riders and parents might argue it probably for their development is better if they're at those races, but what you've got to take and consider is like some tracks we can only go to on a Sunday anyway. So that rules out some tracks. And then secondly, like the track maintenance it's already well saying put the kids out on a hard track, but you've got to get a balance. Putting a 65 rider out straight after a 450 moto is going to be a bit, you want them to progress, but come on, you also got to have a degree of safety. And I just think all that stemmed from, again, this is personal opinion. I think, Matt Bates came along at a time with Red Bull wanted to do something. They invested into it. Matt had the nous to do it, and I don't think anybody can dispute that when the Red Bull Nationals came along, it was Pro Nationals, it was a breath of fresh air. But I think everybody thereafter thought, okay, that's how you do it. That's the way you do it. You have just one big bumper event with everybody at it. All well and good, because it was good, but you've got to have then the infrastructure and the finances and resources to do that to that standard. Matt put together an incredible track team. By that I meant that literally the guys that built and prepped and maintained the tracks throughout the weekend, they were so well drilled. Red Bull's money was behind it, Matt's experience as a promoter, and it was from nowhere. It was like all whistles and bells. But as Red Bull, I think, have proven down the years, and I could be wrong on this. I know I say that a lot, but it's no conclusive evidence. But they do stuff where they give it a shelf life. They don't almost like flog something to death to the point where it goes, oh, it's all getting a bit. It's always something fresh and new. So when they decided that we've done that and it's brilliant, and Matt wanted to move on to do other things, I think the rest of the industry went, well, that's how you do it. And on paper, yeah, brilliant. But you need the resources and investment to do something that well. And I just think, for a little while there, it all got a bit, like we were really trying to elevate the sport, but like maybe too much emphasis on trying to sort of cobble it all together as one big package. So I think the British Championship now, with the format it's in, is really good. I think Colin has done a really good job, Hambridge, in his first year of running the British Youth. But I mean, that was a last minute thing. He had to pick it up and he took it on. Credit to him, and I think he's done a good job. So I think the British Youth now, if we can build that to a level that's the same as the adults, maybe, just maybe, we can look at, again, Royal We, maybe live streaming 1 or 2 rounds, if not all of them. Give the kids that exposure, because I think that's the other thing. When we've had it all together, they inevitably sort of play second fiddle to the pros. And they like, for example, if there was ever like a mudder or a real wet meeting or something, you can bet your bottom dollar it was always the kids that were going to be yanked out of the schedule, Yeah. So
and they're the future.
Future. So I'd like to see, again, like the British Youth Championship kind of just trying to align a bit more with the adults. So like a clear path for the kids to go through. And even if that's like cross promotion on the website, or the main championship, also keep an eye on the youth and highlight some of the riders that are coming through, and we even get them at some rounds, maybe, even if they don't race, but we interview them at the event and they come on the live stream and talk about what they're doing, so we can bring the audience up to speed with who's coming up.
Yeah,
that would be cool. But I think we're we've taken a big step forward with getting it back on track this year. I think from what I've heard, the numbers on the live stream are been good. I know that we're getting viewers from all over the world because they obviously comment while we're doing it. So we get people watching from Australia, literally Asia, America, Canada. So
it's quite huge, really. Isn't
it? Yeah. So if we can get it back on track, regards of that level, dare I say it, I know we want British champions and all that kind of stuff, but there's no harm for me. When GP riders come in, you could argue like, well, hold on, they're probably getting start money to do it, or they are, and that's a bit of a contagious subject because that's not putting money into the British rider's pocket. But I think we're in that kind of middle ground where anything that's going to elevate the British Motocross Championship again and get it out there to a bigger audience, then if you're looking to get behind it as a brand or a product, and all of a sudden you're getting, you know, an advert on the live stream and it's going out to 200,000 people, or you're putting a banner up on a track without a live stream and 2,000 people at the trackside are seeing it, but not really
Glance at it.
but not really taking it in. So I think, yeah, I think it's back on the right track, and I know how passionate Paul is about it. He's an ex-racer, ex-Grand Prix racer. He's not motivated to do it as a job for money. You know, he's been a very successful businessman.
Yeah.
In the industry. That's the other thing. He's run an industry brand for years, so he knows that, and he's not doing it for any kind of quick financial gain.
No.
He just wants to see it back to how I guess his generation, my generation, remember it, which was solid lineups. You know, 40 on a gate with great racing, and we had some like genuine world class talent racing in it.
Yeah.
So I think we're on a upward trajectory. Yeah.
Do you think there'll be a more incentive to riders to do the British? Do you think they'll create a better incentive for them to be involved?
I think so. I like what they've done this year. Regards of like taking away the registration fee. I totally agree with that. I don't think there was any need for that.
No.
You know, just like then you can just rock up, and if you want to give it a go and you think you're good enough, and the fact that they brought back like qualifying, you know, so they're taking more than 40 registered riders. I mean, we haven't reached that mark at all rounds. We had it at, I think it was Hawkstone. We had a qualifying and a last chance race in MX2. But that's how it should be. So when the British Championship comes to your region, if you're like a regional club rider who don't do the British, go and give it a go.
Yeah.
You know, because if you don't get in, okay, you've given it a go. And if you don't get in, like almost like when I was doing GPs, well, what are you going to do? You're going to knock around and watch some great racing. I mean, in 6 years of racing GPs, I think I was fortunate to only fail to qualify, I think 4 times. I mean, apart from the money I needed to get back home, but I'm like, well, okay. Again, my attitude to it was, well, I didn't get in. I gave it my best shot. Now what I'm going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick around and watch some amazing racing that I wanted to be in, but I'm not, and embrace the whole weekend.
Yeah.
So I think to get rid of the registration fee was really good. And I would absolutely encourage more club racers when the British Championship comes to your venue. What have you got to lose? Literally, you're either going to make the cut or you're not.
Yeah.
You're not, like, nobody's
as well, isn't it?
exactly. You're sharing a track with some top level riders. You know, dare I say it, even that short time in qualifying, you might not make the race, but even in that short time of following riders that are better than you might actually learn something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we're in a good place, and like I said, being, I guess, part of that inner circle at that level. You know, again, I'm not putting words in people's mouth or anything like that, but I can see the care and passion and work that's going into it to get it back on track. So so with that firmly at the back of my mind, I'm confident that we're moving in the right direction.
No, good.
Yeah, it's all good.
Anything you want to add, Reese?
I don't think so. Oh, good to me. Oh, actually, I have got something. Give me 2 secs. It's about the GP of Great Britain.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. It's going to cause some clickbait, this is.
This post right here.
Oh, yes.
Fox Hill track map.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Right. Okay. So, yeah, the Fox Hill track map that I posted up. Right. Well, all this is me. This is, again, probably me getting too passionate for my own good. This stems from my desire to every track I go to and every bit of land I see when I'm driving the endless miles that I drive. I see bits of land ever since certainly my experience of obviously co-designing the track on the Isle of Wight and stuff like that. I just always imagine what I would do with a venue if I had total control. So the number of years we've been going to Fox Hill since I used to race there. Obviously, I was fortunate to race British GPs there from 95 to 2000. and I see it and I remember it, the glory days of that valley filled with people, and I just like, oh, if you could just put some investment back into this place. Yes, there's no soil. Yes, it's shot. There's no soil. All that. So when I'd done this, obviously first and foremost, I saw the post. Paul Hooton put it up on Dirt Hub, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I mean, again, it's no official line. I haven't heard it's happening or not. There's loads of rumors. Is it likely to happen? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not privy to that. But I just couldn't help but jump on the sort of bandwagon of trying to be positive, because first and foremost, what I do know, or I think I know, is they're saying, you know, that it sounds like at this moment as we sit here that it might change, that, you know, Matterley is off the table. So if that's the case, we need to find another venue. So
need a British GP.
I'm exactly. I mean, we're, like I've highlighted before, we're a massive motocross nation, a huge industry player, you know, regards of equipment that we sell and all that kind of stuff. So I just couldn't, I thought, do you know what? And I was so, when I did this, I was having a pretty piss poor day, to be honest. Like, you know, it'd been a slog. Like, I've been on the phone a lot, some email, you know, I'm just like, oh God, I've had a crap day. It's been a tough day. So I thought, I'm going to get positive and I'm going to go and lay down what I would do, or I think I do. There were certain variations of what I did with this, but I did a few on paper, and I thought, no, I'm settling for that one. And I drew it up properly. And I thought, you know what? If we are going to change the venue and we are going to have a British GP, and if it is going to Fox Hill, and I don't know if it is or isn't, this is what I would do with it, just to try and spin a bit of positivity. So it's not beyond the realms. Like I said, it's going to take, if it does go there, it is going to take a huge effort. It's going to take, and I hope it does, just for the sake of keeping a British GP. If it doesn't, as long as it could go, I don't know, Hawkstone, I don't think we could go there because of space. There's varying other places we can go, but I'd still like to see a British GP.
It would be a little bit like Erne, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people crammed into a smaller space.
So when I drew this track out, people go, well, it's shot. And I'm like, yeah, but you're thinking now, like I'm on about if, and it's a massive if somebody was willing to invest that amount of time and money to revamp the place, which you'd have to a certain standard to even get the GP. I was trying to jump on like the positive side of things, because I'm a kind of glass half full guy, not empty. Like, think of it this way: if somebody did take it on and we could invest into the place and get fresh dirt in, you know, would it stick to the ground? I don't know. All these things I don't know. But let's say with the magic wand, you know, and the whole pie in the sky scenario, if you could bring fresh soil in and revamp the place and bring it somewhere back to its former glory, how is UK motocross not going to benefit? Because we've suddenly got like an amazing venue with a load of history and heritage back up to speed, as in, you know, a modern motocross track, you know, with infrastructure. Because either way you look at it, we don't have a venue in the UK like you know, Erne, you know, that's got hills and everything like that. But look at the infrastructure there. Wouldn't it be amazing? Like, again, this is just wishful thinking. This is me just probably being too optimistic. But if you could just close your eyes and imagine Fox Hill with infrastructure, with power wash bays, with a proper commentary tower, with all those things.
You could see everything there as well.
Yeah, you know, with everything kept up together, you know, like let the grass go back in certain places, all those things to make it look ridiculously cool. Because regards of elevation and the potential of the place, there's not many places in the UK that can match that, regards of the drama of an amphitheatre with steep hills and all that. And as I said, Matterley was a breath of fresh air, and it came at the right time, you know, and we had that First Nations there, and you would never match that again. It was insane. No. It was nuts. And
such a big area to fill as well.
And you probably couldn't take a Motocross of Nations to Fox Hill.
No.
Now.
The infrastructure.
We obviously did back in the day, but you couldn't. But a GP, and you could. And honestly, as I said, like the numbers, as Steve will tell you, you know, like trying to make a British GP work, Matterley is such a vast place.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing, but it warrants a nation's to have like 30,000 people plus to make it even feel alive and busy.
Yeah.
And as I think even put in the post, you have 10,000 people at Matterley, it's going to spread out on that vast venue. It's going to seem like a practice day. You get 10,000 people at Fox Hill, it is going to be bumping. It's going to feel different. So,
do you think we could get? I don't know. Could it happen? Could we get? Who would put the funding forward?
I've got no idea. I'd love to see it happen. Hence why I did the post. And I, like any other race fan, I just saw the post, I saw the news, and I thought, and again, wishful thinking, as I think I tried to outline in my post. You know, I just some positivity for British motocross. Like, I'd rather have a British GP than
100%,
not.
Yeah.
You know, so if that's the reality, if it stays at Matterley, brilliant. And what I would say, if it stays at Matterley, everybody do your part.
Yeah, get there.
And actually get there.
Support
and
it.
Clubs and people like that, look at the date, try to avoid the date. Don't run an event on the same weekend as the British GP.
Yeah.
And let's get everybody there and make it great. So I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I'd love to say I'm part of the inner circle, but I'm not. Obviously, with regards to the British Championship, I'm a bit more involved with those conversations because of my role presenting a live stream. When it comes to the British GP, I haven't got a clue. I've been asked to commentate on it the last couple of years with Roger, but that's it. I'm not part of an organising team. I'm not in the loop. I'm certainly not, I'll tell you right now, I'm not putting myself in a position to be the promoter, because hats off to Steve, what he's done over the last number of years. And the reason I can say that is because even back as 04, when I was involved with the Isle of Wight GP, and it was different then. I think it's even harder now to put on a GP.
Yeah.
And even back in 04, I was younger, obviously, more energy, but I didn't have my head on the chopping block. I wasn't the promoter. I was just part of the team. And I'm like, this is an undertaking.
100%.
This is like, there's so much
imagine.
more that goes into this than people realize. If you just even went through the health and safety that you had to sign off. And that's what Steve was talking about recently. Like, if people knew, like, it's honestly like, and now.
And then they moan about ticket prices and
It's like,
even the fencing around that place.
Yeah.
The cost of that must be.
It's ridiculous. And since post-COVID, everything is just, I think like straight after COVID, even when we were running events with Steelhawk Motorcycle Club, like Julian and Paul and myself, just everything went rocketed, like up like 200%.
Yeah.
Like toilets just suddenly went like almost quadrupled in price.
And the litter at the end.
Yeah. So I'm all for it. You know, I mean, all I would say is I did that with my intention of being nothing more than positive, to say, if we are going there, rather than like saying it's done, it's you know, it's a tip, it's had its day. Like, wouldn't it be quite refreshing if we just went, well, would you rather not have a GP? We are going there, so all get behind it, right? Whoever's doing it, and let's try and actually be positive about it, because that's one thing I think social media does as well, and maybe it's British mentality down the years. We're all a bit downtrodden. It's easy to just be negative on something.
Yeah.
Or it's so easy to say that's crap.
Yeah.
Than looking at a way of
getting it to happen.
Of making it happen. Yeah, or making something better. It's the easy option to just go, it's crap.
That's shit.
It's easy to moan.
Yeah.
You know.
And we don't have a GP, do we?
You know, it's easy to just say there's a problem and walk away from it. It's much more rewarding to try and fix it.
Yeah.
Fix the problem, fix the solution. So, yeah, I got no idea if it's going to happen, Reese, or not. But if it does, whoever's going to take it on, I will, you know, I will try and do whatever I can to support the cause, you know, in my powers, you know, like where I sit in the industry or whatever, I'm all for it. So
I've just had a thought now. A similar like layout, the valley and stuff, but it'd be a lot easier like dirt wise would be Thor's Way.
Guy Martin.
similar
Guy
thing, yeah.
Martin's way.
No,
That's the
exactly
same.
that.
Dirt will be like,
Yeah.
I think is
yeah, it's literally just like,
And I don't know what happened there, because we were moving rapidly with that. I'm led to believe, you know, again, hearsay. I haven't heard from Guy or anybody directly with that, but from what I can make out, like I think he obviously he did his piece on BBC Regional News, really, really being positive about it and saying like his vision to have Grand Prix there, because he did openly say that. He got Alfie and Justin in to do the track. And again, I think, through his positivity, I think that, I don't think that probably helped the cause, because I think some locals kind of went, well, what's all this about? All of a sudden we're going to have, 20,000 people. Yeah. I mean, I might be wrong with that, but, again, it's a brilliant venue. We did a couple of Red Bull Pro Nationals there, and of course, Honda used to use it a lot as their test track. So
yeah, wicked track.
Listen, honestly, I don't say I don't care. I'm not. There's always opinions of where it should go, and what you think's better, and everybody's opinion would be different. What I'm trying to say is, I'd rather that it goes to Fox Hill or anywhere else, any other track in the UK, than not at all.
Than not have a GP at all. Yeah.
And I like everybody else, I just saw the post. I'm like, right. Can you imagine if somebody took that on and actually had the backing of everybody, some industry players, somebody with a bit of financial clout, and gone, right, okay, let's see this as an opportunity for not just for the GP, but for British motocross, to revamp and revitalise one of our most iconic and famous circuits. I'd say the same thing with Hawkstone.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. Cullum's another one. Cullum, it's like they've had a GP there, 500 GP back in the day. And again, I look every time I go to Cullum, but more on a summer's day, because obviously in the winter it's got a tendency to get a bit damp down the bottom. But every time I go to Cullum, I look at that track and think, God, actually, this has got good dirt. It's got a lot of flat. You could get a lot of people in at the top. You could if you cut out that bit of land and you gave, and that was in France or something where they don't have the restrictions and planning restrictions that we do, or in America.
Yeah.
You imagine what you could do with it. I mean, I was at Ironman, and the elevation at Ironman was no, regards to the hills and bits that you see, they were no steeper or longer than what you had at Cullum.
No. Did we go Ironman? No, it was a Redbud. I couldn't believe how small Redbud feels when you're actually there. Then it looks on telly. So, I'd get behind all of them. The reality is it's not even the track, getting everybody in. You like I said, you probably won't be able to run a Nations at Fox Hill anymore, because things have changed since we had it there. Everybody's got big motorhomes, even the fans, everybody. Yeah. But as the VMX the end proved, you could probably run a GP there and still get, the main paddock, if put down a bit of hard standing. They got plenty of space there regards of the paddock. They could lay out the same size area as what they did at Matterley. You could still get all the media and all the EMX riders in. You'd probably have to hire fields for the fans, but regards of getting everybody in, and I'd say the same thing with Hawkstone. And I've heard loads of people say about Hawkstone, and I'm like, yeah, you imagine how good that would be. That would be insane to see GP riders go around there on a revamped track. But the reality is, it's not the track at Hawkstone. It's like you would struggle to get everybody in, but it's the roads in and out. Yeah,
there's single traffic road for a quarter of a mile, half a mile to the little track, and there's only two small tracks in and out. You just couldn't do it.
No.
Whereas obviously Fox Hill, Forsway, Cullum, there's a bunch of them. So I'm not saying it should be there. All I'm saying is, and the people that jumped on it, is like, look, if that rumor is true, then this is my sort of personal vision. And I did varying other track designs as well. I just looked at the track for modern motocross. Bikes are faster. Tracks don't chew up as much on 4 strokes as they used to on 2 strokes. And I just think the layout just needs slowing down a little bit for modern motocross. It's a bit fast and wide open, and and that's what I do. Hence the kind of corkscrew corner down by the reservoir, because as I put in the post, that was a big part of the course design that we put in over the Isle of Wight, which worked brilliantly, because that's all off camber. I've literally at Fox Hill gone walking around the track on numerous occasions after racing on my own. I did it last time we were there at the VMX the end this year. I went over the far side, and I look at the lie of the land, and I'm like, okay, that would be a cool place to put a big sweeping off camber corner where it just keeps going away from you. So that's all it is. So let's see if it happens. Would they use my design? Probably not, but I put it out there anyway.
Put it out there, yeah.
So yeah,
It's got people talking anyway,
yeah, you know,
which is good.
which is actually, you know, a real reason why I posted it, because I'm just like, let's
Fire everyone up.
yeah, let's get on this. If this is going to happen, then let's get really positive about it and get behind. Like I said, I got no idea who's going to promote it if the rumors are true, but whoever is, you know, rather than like already put them on the back foot of negativity and make them question why they're doing it, let's really get behind them and give them all our support, because ultimately, if that track does get a facelift and really gets brought up to speed with fresh dirt and whatever, you know, what's to say that we couldn't take a British Championship there? You know, that you couldn't have like a youth national there. Clubs could use it. All of a sudden, you're using a GP spec track.
Yeah.
So how's that not good for everybody?
No, exactly. It's another venue again, isn't it?
Yeah,
Matley only gets used for that.
exactly.
For that one thing.
Yeah. And
No use to anybody for the rest of the year.
And everybody in British motocross at a high level, you know, regards of the ACU British Adult Championship and Youth Championship, all say the same. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could ride Matley at least once a year?
Yeah. So cool.
You know, if we could, brilliant. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah.
How would that not be good? So let's just see what happens. But that's my take on it. I guess, you know, by the time this podcast comes out, we might even know if it's a yes or a no. But I'd love to give you a scoop, because that's what I think people jumped on as well. It's like, oh, he knows something I don't. Well,
Yeah.
I don't. I just read the same post as you and got excited. No more. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
No, hopefully something comes. We need something in England, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, but again, I probably jumped on it a bit more just because it just resonated with me, because I was fortunate enough to experience
Yeah.
racing a GP at that track. And it's some of the obviously greatest moments of my life. I'll tell you that now. Like, I wasn't even a front runner, but the minute I rolled out at every GP for the first lap of free practice, I dropped down into that valley, and air horns were going for like me, for any British rider, and how you
The
cannot.
atmosphere.
It was incredible,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm like, God. And then I literally on that first session, every year it went like swimming through my head. Conversation with Dad in the shop, Mum's rousing speech around the dinner table. I'm like, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm actually on track doing like what we said we could possibly do. So I'm fortunate to experience what it's like to race in your home GP. And I'm telling you right now, if that happens and everybody gets behind it, for any British rider that's out there doing it, it will be a very special moment.
Yeah. Create the best atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely.
No, wicked. Thank you. Best let you crack on and get to another podcast.
Yeah, yes. I got to go and do my day job now. My other job. I got to go on the other end doing the So yeah,
No,
we've got to
thank
rush
you.
down to do a Talk Moto podcast, and yeah, so get that done on the way home.
Wicked.
All talked out. As long as my brother doesn't ring me on the way home saying I'm not reliving it again. I'll tell you when I see you next.
Yeah, just watch it back.
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks for having me, mate. I really appreciate that. And I got to say, you know, like what you're doing here as well. We need more of it. So keep up the good work at Moto 101. That's what I like about it. The way you're doing the branding, the marketing, the track layout. You know, trying to lift the game. So
No, thank you.
I hope that other people watching or realise try and raise the bar with their practice facilities as well, because we definitely do need more better ones.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work.
Wicked. Thank you very much. I'll try.
There we go.
Is that it?